Thank God for the Knicks last night. Not because I wanted them to win, but just because I wanted some sort of basketball this weekend to watch. Playoff implications. The Knicks beat the Pacers last night to extend the Eastern Conference Finals. It is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. Kevin's off until Wednesday, I found out. I told everybody Monday yesterday. Well, I'm going to be back on Monday yesterday, so congratulations to all of us. I was watching this game last night, Max. I was excited about this game. I think this series is incredibly compelling, significantly more so than the Western Conference Finals. The games have been significantly better than the Western Conference Finals.
By far.
And despite the fact that I would consider this a blowout, I mean, a nearly 20-point win for the New York Knicks, I enjoyed watching this game significantly more than I have enjoyed watching a majority of the games in the Western Conference Finals. Not all of them, because there were a few good ones in there, but most of them sucked. This one, at the very least, did not, because Jalen Brunson saved the day. I just wanted a game on Saturday. That's all I wanted. I don't like the Knicks. They are very clearly, to me, the villain in the equation here.
Sure.
They are the big team backed by the big market with the big celebrities, many of whom I have learned are softer than Charmin, which we will get into momentarily. But I just needed something on Saturday to look forward to from a sporting event perspective. I will watch a little bit of college baseball. I'll definitely lock into some college softball. The College Softball World Series is actually one of my favorite events during the summer. I think the overall presentation of it is fantastic. I don't watch softball regularly, but I do love watching the playoff and the tournament style. Oklahoma yesterday, huge walk-off. My boy Chris Plank over there, who calls Oklahoma games, had a hell of a call. But I needed basketball on Saturday, and I'm very happy that the Knicks were able to at least give me that. And you get another raucous environment in Indiana coming up this weekend.
Yeah, it's good basketball. Like, there's just no replacement for it, and especially because with the NHL playoffs getting we're moving
Wrapped
to
up.
Yeah, they're wrapping up very quickly. We're getting the Stanley Cup final rematch, so there's not a lot on this weekend. So I needed something to sink my teeth into, and this series has been. I want it to go 7. Scott Foster's done a great job.
Thank you to Scott Foster
as the extender. Thank you, Adam Silver. Thank you, Scott Foster.
He needs to put that. I don't know that Scott Foster is on Twitter. In fact, I'd prefer that he not be on Twitter. I don't need the insights into the mind of Scott Foster on a regular basis. But if he did have a UFC style or a WWE style nickname, I think the extender would be a pretty good one. Scott the Extender Foster. Maybe the Extender Scott Foster. Just do the nickname first and the full name second there, because that is basically what his job is. I don't think he's a great official. In fairness, I don't know that I could name a great official.
Yeah.
Certainly not today. In fact, it's better that you can't. The best officials are the ones where I don't recognize. I don't know their name. I don't know what they look like. I don't know how they make calls. Scott Foster is the opposite. It really started because of Chris Paul, and it is carried over to more than just Chris Paul. Now that Chris Paul in the overall NBA zeitgeist is not that relevant. But when Scott Foster comes into playoff games, you know that this series, if it is an elimination game, and it's not a game 7, is getting extended. If Scott Foster is officiating a game 7, I mean, you talking to old Dumbo ears over there and Adam Silver being like, why are you putting Scott Foster on a game 7? I don't need the biggest well-known official officiating a game 7. I want superstars. I don't need officiating superstars. I don't really think officiating has been spectacular throughout the course of this series. It feels like they don't really have an understanding of consistency, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to sit here and complain about officiating in a game that I don't really care about. I do find it annoying when everyone does it on social media, but Knicks fans are going to be Knicks fans. They're new to this. They don't understand how to behave in these sorts of scenarios. Everything that happens to them is the worst thing in the world. Everything that happens to the other team is deserved. We've done this song and dance before. I don't really care to get into the ins and outs of officiating, but I do want to get into the ins and outs of Jalen Brunson because he was fantastic. You needed a Brunson game, and this was a Brunson game. You kind of got one in game 1, and then they squandered it when he had like 40. But this was exactly the kind of performance you needed. He was efficient. He showed the best elements of what it is to watch Jalen Brunson play, because when he is at his best, he is a really, really good player in the NBA. And I don't know if this is my personal biases coming into the equation, Max, even though as it relates to basketball, I do not fall in this category, but I love lefties.
Yeah.
Watching left-handed guys play basketball, there's something about it. I think there's a dynamic to it that makes it a little bit more difficult to defend. Now, if you're in the NBA, you should be able to defend whoever, but there is a little bit of an extra beauty when a left-handed person does something that right-handed people do on a regular basis, just because it is so out of the ordinary. I don't shoot a basketball left-handed, although there were points in my life where I taught myself to shoot a basketball.
Good for you.
Left-handed, but I do right left-handed. I'm one of those weirdos where with most sports, not that I play a lot of sports anymore at the age of 30 years old, unless anyone has an open spot on their intramural ultimate Frisbee team, hit me up. Most sports, though, I am right-handed, but I write with my left hand. So I have a special place in my heart for the lefties like Jalen Brunson, and New York clearly has a special place in their heart for him. He's the greatest Knick since Ewing. And if they get to the finals, you'll be starting to push that conversation, particularly if they win the thing, which I don't think that they will. This seems like the Thunder's finals to wrap up regardless of who they play. But if Jalen Brunson wins the NBA finals, he's the greatest New York Knicks since at least Walt Frazier. Like, you have to go way, 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 way back.
In terms of success, I would agree with you, but man, Carmelo.
I mean, the Melo thing is kind
fun.
of a tough thing to overcome, especially for those of us that are our age.
Yeah,
because there is a special place.
Yeah, so much reverence for that.
I mean, Carmelo is I don't think you can properly understand the love that our generation has for Carmelo Anthony unless you are a part of our gen. Because it really started with Denver, the Denver Melo, and then when he came to New York. And he had some crazy games on Sundays, man.
That homecoming video that he put out when he was going to the Knicks, still gives me chills to this day.
It's just a thing of beauty. Like that game against, this is so random because who cares about regular season basketball? But that game against the Bulls on a Sunday in March of like 2011, why do I know that? It's not important. But he hits a game-tying shot as the buzzer ends regulation, and then another one in the grill of Luol Deng. That was when the NBA Sunday basketball used to mean something to me. Like when they would have a 3:30 tip-off and it's like a Knicks. And that's when Steve Novak was on the team. It was like Melo, Amari Stoudemire, Jeremy Lin, and Steve Novak after Linsanity. Pre-Linsanity was a completely different story. But those used to mean something. Now I just couldn't care less. So it does hurt a little bit to say that Jalen Brunson might be the greatest Knick since Ewing over Carmelo Anthony, but I do think at this point it's coming close to fruition. Because this dude he's a scoring machine.
Yeah. They flashed a graphic on the screen. I don't think it was last night. I think it was the game before. The net rating with Jalen Brunson off the floor was like 18 or plus 18. When he was on the floor, it was minus 11. So I'm glad to see that he is kind of taking had that game to kind of turn that stat around so they could, not worry about the graphic as much. But yeah, Brunson is just, they're so fun.
He just controls the game.
Especially when it gets down to like under 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. He's like, all right, guys, it's my time.
Like, ain't nobody else shooting the ball. We're not giving this to OG Anunoby, who went 3 of 14. You're not shooting the ball in the fourth quarter with less than 10 minutes, certainly not less with 5 minutes to go. We made the jokes all the time, and it wasn't a joke. It was a real thing. When Damian Lillard was at the peak of his powers, it was Dame time. Jalen Brunson might be able to steal that away because when it's under 5 minutes, it's Jalen time. Not that it really mattered in the fourth quarter because the lead was so large at that point, but you just know in the final few minutes of the game that Brunson is the guy that's going to be taking the shot, and you trust him more than literally anyone else on the floor. It was a good game for Karl Anthony Towns as well. He had 24. I still don't like watching him play basketball. I apologize. I just think he should be so much better than he is. Now, it was bad for me to say that when he had 24 and 13, because this was a really good Cat game. I just wish he was so much better than he was. It's a personal thing. It will never not be a personal thing, Max, until he wins the MVP, because that's why I don't like him.
Good luck.
I mean, exactly, but that's why I don't like him. He was coming out of college in Kentucky. I'm holding way too deep onto this grudge, and I fully understand that. It's literally not even his fault.
I respect a good grudge, Denton.
It was just the talking heads in the media where they declared him a future MVP before he'd even played. It's my least favorite thing that's done by talking heads in all of sports, when you start calling guys, future MVP, and you have no idea. The same thing was done to Joel Embiid, but I had to shut up because he actually won the thing. But Karl Anthony Towns is not. He played really well, though, 24 and 13 for him. Those were the two superstars for the New York Knicks. I do want to get to something before I start lambasting the the guy that I was told was a superstar that I knew was not a superstar that then decided to validate my points on the other side of the sideline. But I do want to get to something from last night. I love Charles Barkley with my entire heart. He is one of the best guys on television because he does not care. He will say whatever he wants. He will do whatever he wants, and he doesn't really care if he's punished. In fact, he doesn't really get punished. He just lives by his own whim, and I love that about him. Sometimes it gets a little odd. This is Chuck yesterday on the court, NBA on TNT, hanging out with Karl Anthony Towns. Listen to this.
You're the only basketball player I know got good-looking feet.
Hey, man. Shout out to my mama, man.
Damn.
24 points, 13 rebounds on the night in the game you absolutely have.
God bless Ernie Johnson.
Way to move on, Ernie.
I mean, Charles Barkley pulling a Rex Ryan over here, just staring right into the toes of Karl Anthony Towns, who, if you want to defend Chuck in this scenario, you're more than welcome to. I'm not going to judge you.
301-230-0980.
I mean, if you want to start defending guys for looking at each other's feet, go right ahead. I will just make assumptions about your credit card bill and where some of that money goes. But he's just looking right at the feet of Karl Anthony Towns, and Towns didn't have socks on, which I guess maybe he is to blame for that one. He just walked out, toes out. I can't be mad. I don't have socks on right now. My wife got me Birkenstocks for my birthday, and they're very uncomfortable with socks. They rub up. They cause blisters. I don't need any of those sorts of things at my age now. So Cat was just sitting there toes out, and Charles Barkley commenting on his toes. That's Rex Ryan-esque. Yeah. It's very Rex Ryan-esque.
I heard very briefly somebody, I don't know if it was Kenny or Shaq, but I heard shit.
Yeah, caught himself a little bit. They're like, wait, we're on television. Like, but at this point, you might as well. I mean, if you think that Game 6 is the end of this, which I do, Indiana's going to win Game 6. They're going to go to the NBA Finals. It's going to be the Thunder and the Pacers. So if Game 6 is the end of it, that is going to be the end of NBA on TNT. And I fully understand that they are going to move to ESPN. Not going to be the same.
No,
it's not going to be the same.
The one thing I know about the Mouse is that they like to let their employees do as they please.
And the mothership is going to shoehorn a bunch of different voices into that program, whether that be Stephen A. I mean, I like Mike Wilbon. Maybe they shoehorn Mike Wilbon into it, but they're going to start to put their hands on this sort of product that doesn't need to be adjusted. You just need to let them have free reign, but it's something that particular company has not done a very good job on when it comes to television, but they desperately need it. I don't know that you have watched any of the ESPN coverage, Max, leading up to Western Conference Finals games.
I've made an effort not to.
It's awful.
Yeah.
It's really, really not good. I mean, they talk about other things. I understand that you're paying Stephen A. Smith an abundance of money, but making him the superstar where we are talking about his outfits rolling up to game and how he reacted to Knicks' loss when you're previewing the Western Conference Finals, like, it is just a mess at times. And I'm terrified of what they're going to end up doing to NBA on TNT. So the idea that we're going to lose NBA on TNT less than a week, or I guess more than a week, it'll be a week and a day after we lose Around the Horn. It feels like my childhood is getting disintegrated.
It's being ripped from you
in front of me. Two shows that I hold very dear to my heart because they're fun. They're entertaining. Like, I can't stay up and watch the post-game show for NBA on TNT now just because I wake up at 4:34 sharp every single morning. But at points in my life where I did not have to wake up at 4:30, you're constantly watching that after games. The game could suck. It could have been a 50-point blowout between like the Mavericks and the Trailblazers in 2016, and it didn't matter. You're just staying up there in college with your boys, with the homies, and y'all are shooting it about some hoops, and then you're listening to those guys talk about some hoops. So the fact that we're losing that on TNT stinks. You know what else stinks? Tyrese Halliburton stunk last night. He was awful. Just really not good. And this is a little bit of a common theme with Tyrese Halliburton. There's been a conversation surrounding him on whether he is a superstar or not. And he's such a weird and wonky guy to adequately judge with a critical lens, because you had that performance in game number 4 where he was unbelievable. First time in NBA history, a guy went for 30, 15, and 10 with no turnovers. When your primary ball handler is dishing out 15 assists and not turning the ball over, that seems impossible, but he was able to do that. In fact, when he originally burst onto the scene in the NBA in-season tournament last year, it was for stat lines like that. There were how many games was he having massive double-doubles or even triple-doubles and not turning the basketball over. It made you want to watch the NBA in-season tournament. If not, I didn't care about the trophy. I didn't care about how the tournament and the landscape of the tournament. I just wanted to see Tyrese Halliburton more frequently, and Indiana was forced to be on national television because of the tournament. So that was sick. Game 4, he was sick. He stunk last night. And this conversation about, is he a superstar? Is he not a superstar? If he played in a bigger market, or if he was an actual superstar, he's getting James Harden crucified today. Because last night was a James Harden game. You had an opportunity in New York as a WWE kind of guy on the court. Week ago, you're doing the choke sign after you hit this crazy shot in game number 1. You had an opportunity to put the New York Knicks away in front of Spike Lee, in front of Tim Chalamet, and whichever Jenner he is dating. Kylie, I think it is.
Kylie. Oh, have you heard that stat? Timothy Chalamet and Kylie Jenner are 2-0 when they're both in the building.
I would think the Knicks would want Kylie Jenner in the building for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, if I'm Timmy C, I'm saying, hey, honey, I know you got a $1 billion makeup company. I know you got probably a couple photo shoots, but you're coming to Indiana for
you got to get here as soon as possible. But he had this opportunity to stick the knife in their chest and look them in the eye. And instead, what we get from Halliburton in 32 minutes, 2 of 7, 8 points. It's a James Harden stat. But the crazy thing is, this is not the first, and it will not be the last time he has a stat like that. In nearly every single postseason series that he has had something to the effect of not a lot of shots, not a lot of makes, less than 10 points. He was 3 for 8, and he had a game in the Cleveland series, 3 for 8. He had a game in that same series where he went 2 for 8. He had a 3-13 performance against Milwaukee in round number 1. Last year against the Knicks in game number 1, he went 2 of 6. Last year against Milwaukee, he went like 4 of 7 in a game in that series, when he has been elevated to a star in this league, which the past 2 years, I would say he is definitely a star. You knew he was going to be good after watching him in the early days of his career in Sacramento. You didn't know how good, but you knew he was going to be good. But as he is elevated to the position where you can call him a star in the league, on the borderline or on the cusp of being a superstar, he always has these bench performances. Like, this is just a dude performance. This is not a superstar that's carrying the weight of a franchise performance. And Madison Square Garden, bright lights, all of those things. But I feel like in game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals, the bright lights of Madison Square Garden don't really bother you anymore. You beat them in Madison Square Garden multiple times last year. You've already beat them in Madison Square Garden once this year. Those lights should not bother you. The celebrities should not bother you. He just has this tendency to completely let the game get away from him. The killer that we saw in game number 4 was not the dude that showed up in game number 5. I can't call him a superstar if you constantly have these levels of inconsistency. Like, I need to see a lot more from him, especially if you're going to beat the Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's had one bad game the entire season, postseason and regular season. You're going to be competing against the MVP. I think Indiana's going to win. They're going to win in game 6. I don't have any doubt about that. If you want an early play before the line starts to adjust, I would lay the 3.5 with Indiana. I already have. I'm very confident that the Pacers are going to win in game number 6. It just bothers me that Tyrese Halliburton is not the guy that I want him to be on a regular basis. Not the guy that should be in the conversations for great point guards in the league, should be in the conversation for superstars in the league, because it's not just a one-time thing. Like Anthony Edwards in the Western Conference Finals, this was his first bad series of his career. Multiple games, not good. It's every single series for Tyrese Halliburton. This is a fact that most people will not know, Max, but I will share it with you. I will share it with our listening audience, because you guys know and accept me for the degenerate that I am. You could have made a bet at the beginning of this series for Tyrese Halliburton to score at least 15 points in every single game.
Who did I talk about? Was it you that I talked about?
It probably was me, because I've been banging this drum for quite some time now. That number was at plus 275. No superstar would give you positive value to score 15 points in every single game in a series. If you're given that same stat with Jalen Brunson, that's a minus 20,000. If you're doing that same stat with like a peak LeBron, that's minus 100,000. They're not even going to give you that number. That number is going to be like 25 for LeBron. It might be 20 for Jalen Brunson, but it's only 15 for Tyrese Halliburton. And in every single series, he has had one, if not two games where he has scored less than 15 points. This one came at a bad time. They could have wrapped this thing up, got the rest. You're going to need time to prepare for Oklahoma City just to figure out what they do defensively, how to attack them defensively, figure out how in the world to stop SGA. No one's been able to figure that one out at this point in time. They need a lot of help. They could have used extra rest. Instead, we get what we wanted, which was a game 6. Then I want a game 6 on Saturday. I'm laying Indiana that 3.5 over the Knicks. I think they win it in 6. It just was not a good game from Tyrese Halliburton last night. If you want to jump in on the NBA, you can. 301-230-0980. If you're passionate about what you saw, maybe you're a Knicks fan that thinks they're going to win in 7. I'd love to have a conversation with you about that. 301-230-0980. Coming up next, though, I think the article that was written this week, Max, might have been about the Nationals, might have been a little bit of an inside job. I'll explain when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
the pitch. Swinging a long drive to right by Bell. No one's catching this one. Going, gone, goodbye. That'll bring everybody home. Bang, zoom goes Josh Bell with his second home run in as many nights. Another multi-hit game. It's his 8th home run of the year. It's a 3-run shot, giving him 19 runs batted in for the year. And the Nationals have put 7 runs on the board here in the top of the 10th inning.
Consider that slump over for Josh Bell. Hasn't been a great season. He looked great last night, great the night before. Nats get another win. They win the series against the Mariners. We'll get a little bit deeper into that in about 4 minutes. Denton's Daily News coming up in 15 minutes. But to the phones we go. Talking NBA hoops, Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks win game number 5, 111-94. Are you thrilled with it? Do you think it goes the distance to 7? Let's go to Joe in Springfield. Joe, what's going on, man?
Hey, good morning, Den. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Hope you are too.
Yeah. So I believe that, I understand, technically, let's face it, the Halliburton shot he got in the send overtime in game 1 completely changed the series, because you can make the argument that the Knicks could go back tomorrow night up 3-2 if that shot doesn't happen. But, Den, it's interesting that except from last night when the Knicks basically blew out the Pacers, every single game of this Eastern Conference Finals, unlike the Western Conference Finals, has come down to the end, whether the Knicks make a mistake or the Pacers make a mistake. I mean, the Knicks rallied from 20 down in game 3 to win game 3. Who knows what happens? I understand Indiana is definitely going to come out determined, but, if the Pacers kind of struggle a bit as well, and the concern of the fact then that even though they've won these games, they've allowed, 121 points in game 4. They won in overtime game 1, but they still allowed 132.
Yeah.
I mean, both teams aren't playing well much defense, so who knows what happens? I mean, it's the first time, like I said, it was a blowout win for the first time in this conference finals, but maybe there's a game 7. Who knows? I mean, but this has definitely been some good basketball. I mean, you wish it could keep going, because one, it's on TNT, because you want to see Kenny Charles and Shaq and Ernie still do their thing.
Yeah.
But Knicks and Pacers, it's been a great time, flashback to the 90s when these teams were going out of the playoffs. So who knows what happens? But maybe 7, but who knows what happens? I mean, the playoffs have been fun so far, definitely for the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Joe. I'll tell you this, it ain't going 7. Indiana is going to come out of the gates sprinting in game 6, and they're going to challenge the cardio for New York. Tom Thibodeau has not done a great job, I don't think, with rotations. Putting Josh Hart on the bench has helped a little bit because he can go for 30 minutes off of the bench, but I think Indiana is just going to sprint. I mean, New York has about 6 dudes that play real minutes and then another couple that play solid minutes, but Indiana is going to sprint past them in game 6. This thing's ending in game 6. That's why I'm telling everybody to lay the 3.5 with the Pacers. Speaking of Indiana, let's go to my guy Ross in Tampa. Ross, what's up, man?
You already know, D-Day. What's good in the hood, man?
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling.
I hear you. You know what? I'm chilling, too. Last night, after that blowout loss, I told the missus, I said, you know what? I got to do it. D-Day, I booked a flight to Indy this Saturday, man. I got to be there. I feel like my presence will literally spring them to the NBA Finals. I got a quick little story for you, man. I got kicked out of a go-kart place on my 9th birthday, year 2000. I was pissed. I was angry. My dad said, don't worry about it. I got something for you. I said, what you got for me, Pops? He said, Game 3, 2000 NBA Finals. Shaq and Kobe out there, neutralized Rick Smith. I didn't think Kobe was Kobe at that point in time. I just said, if we can stop Shaq with the Duncan Dutch and Rick Smith, we have a chance. And then nobody was rocking with your boy when the game was over. We won that game. And the only person who showed me love was the father of Trace Jackson Davis. Now, I know Halliburton didn't have the type of superstar type of game last night, but Benedict Mathurin, if he keeps playing like that, man, we have so much weaponry off the bench to where we're not crowning the Thunder in the finals. I think we could really push them for 6 or maybe even 7. We might mess around and win that, Denton. But anyways, Halliburton will, if he, lives to that potential, he'll be my 3rd favorite Pacer of all time, because Dale Davis was the guy who signed my FloJo Reggie Miller jersey for me. It was kind of awkward because it wasn't his jersey, but yeah, it was a good memory. I want that memory back. So I feel like if I fly up there tomorrow night and I watch the game with my boys, there's no way we lose this game. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if Paulie's been on here lately, but that's how a rivalry is supposed to go. We talk a little friendly trash over the radio, not hitting each other with trash bags, not stabbing people at a bar in Indiana. But this is one of the best rivalries in NBA history, giving me that mid-90s vibes. But, hey, man, I just hit you up, Denton. Let's go easy on Halliburton. He did that on purpose because he wants to close it out in the field house.
Ross,
hey, man, so you going to be back next week?
Enjoy it. I'll be back on Monday, so hopefully we'll be talking about your Pacers in the finals. I would say right now, just to anybody, when the Pacers win, because they're going to win in Game 6, it's going to happen. When they win, the smart play is to bet them to win the NBA Finals. Right now, the Thunder are like minus 750. So if you do want a gambling angle, you're going to bet the Pacers. If the Knicks end up coming back and winning this thing in Game 7, don't bet it. The Knicks do not have the depth of the roster to hang with Oklahoma City. That's the one thing that the Indiana Pacers have that makes them a little bit of a viable threat for OKC. It's the only team that has had the depth to match OKC that OKC is going to see in this entire postseason. Denver didn't have it. They didn't see it. Trust me, they didn't see it in the first round. Denver didn't have it in the second round. And very clearly, Minnesota did not have it in the Western Conference Finals. That's the one thing that Indiana has going for them. And then, of course, Rick Carlisle is the best coach that's still coaching in basketball right now. With all due respect, well, not even with all due respect to Thibodeau. Thibodeau's fine. First of all, Tom Thibodeau got to shave the head. You got to shave the head.
Let it go, brother.
I mean, take it from a guy that did let it go at the ripe age of like 28 years old. You got to shave the head. The comb-over situation is not working. First of all, it just looks bad.
I hear
it's
some
not
pals out
fully
in
combed
Bethesda
over.
are offering a little discount on a little hair transplant. So,
Well,
Tom, we can get you down here.
They can give that to Tom Thibodeau. You just got to let it go. The problem is he doesn't have a beard. It's a lot easier
It's
to be
tough.
bald when you have a beard.
Yeah.
The craziest thing, and we'll get to the Nationals in a second here. The craziest thing happened to me, Max. I think you were working here at the time.
Uh-oh.
When I first initiated the
Bald protocol?
buzz cut bald protocol, Chris Russell was talking about my head on
Sure.
the air. And he said, I'm stunned that D-Day doesn't just shave the beard too, just go fully. And I was like, Chris, if I shave my head and the beard, I would look like a thumb. I don't want to look like a thumb.
Yeah.
And then he was like, fair point. So maybe that's why Tom Thibodeau is holding on for dear life. He doesn't have a beard. It's a lot easier to be bald with a beard. All right, I want to get to the Nats real quickly before we get to Denton's daily news and a little bit of trash talk that I think has proved that Knicks fans are kind of soft. That coming up in 10 minutes. But the Nationals got a big win yesterday against Seattle. They went crazy in the 10th inning, scoring 7 of their 9 runs in inning number 10. That Ken Rosenthal piece came out on, what was it, Tuesday? Either Monday night or Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. Tuesday night or Wednesday morning.
I think it was Wednesday morning.
When Linnell was sitting in, I wasn't here. I was busy. So Linnell talked about it. I haven't really talked about the piece itself. I'm not going to go crazy in depth on the piece itself, but I am starting to think that the piece was dropped, the time it was dropped, maybe to light a little bit of a fire under the Nationals. I don't know if there was some inside information that someone was nudging someone in the media, say, hey, I know you have this in the chamber. Now would be a good time to drop it to kind of incite this team a little bit, but it is starting to feel like that because I did read the piece again, Max, this morning, just to make sure that I had some things right. We talked to Mark Zuckerman yesterday about it. The timing of it doesn't make any sense as to why you would release a column like that from Ken Rosenthal. And this isn't a shot at Rosenthal. I think he does a really good job when it comes to the national reporting. But the timing of that did not make any sense because the Nationals have been, I think, this year trending in the right direction. And you would think that somebody with the reporting tenure of Ken Rosenthal would know that this is not the time to release that when James Wood is playing like an all-star, when CJ Abrams is playing like an all-star, when Dylan Cruz, when he was healthy, started to play really, really well after a slow start to the season, when Mackenzie Gore is leading the entire majors in strikeouts when the piece was released. Like, there are a lot of positive signs.
Still is, actually.
Surrounding, exactly it, 8 last night.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
first to hit 100.
The guy is on fire. So the timing of that piece didn't make any sense, but I do feel like it is helping the Nationals because what happened since that piece released? Well, Josh Bell, who had been awful at the plate this year, has now turned into like prime Josh Bell. It's only 2 games. It's a small sample size. I get it. But he is now confident at the plate in a way that he was not before.
Getting that spark, man, it's so helpful.
It's incredibly helpful. Now, the reason that piece was released, like at the crux of it, was really, I think, Rosenthal saying to the learners, you have to pay to keep guys.
Yeah.
Because CJ Abrams is going to get a big contract. James Wood is going to get a big contract. Mackenzie Gore is going to get a big contract. Are you going to be able to keep all 3 of them? No, I don't think so. But you better keep at least 2 of the 3 of them.
Have to.
You have to keep at least 2 of the 3 of them. If what Mackenzie Gore is doing this year ends up being what he is going to be for the rest of his career, he cannot walk. That's the one thing that the Lerners has spent on in previous years is they spent on pitchers. They did it with Scherzer. They obviously did it with Strasburg. Strasburg thing didn't work out. I don't know that you could have predicted that when you paid him. He'd just come off a World Series. I don't mind them paying Strasburg. It just, the way that it ended up working out stunk. Hindsight 2020 in all instances. But they paid Scherzer before. They paid Corbin to win a championship. They decided to pay Corbin basically over Bryce Harper because they were lowballing Bryce Harper. But you can't, when the time comes, you cannot lowball James Wood. That guy's a superstar. And he is only going to elevate in terms of namesake and the star power that he has, especially if he goes to the home run derby this year, which I would love to see James Wood in the home run derby. CJ Abrams is going to be an all-star again. He is going to need a lot of money. I think that article was designed to get a historically cheap ownership group to start paying guys. But I also do think there were some underlying benefits of like making the Nationals come together. And something tells me this is not like a confirmation. This is a gut feeling. But something tells me that has been a big topic of conversation within the clubhouse and the front office. And it's been used as a motivational tactic rather than just a get angry tactic. And I think that's the best way to use these sorts of things. I'll never forget watching The Last Dance and hearing stories of Michael Jordan. Not saying the Nats are Michael Jordan, but you'll get what I'm getting at here. Hearing stories of Michael Jordan and how he would fabricate things in his own mind to then motivate himself to be a killer. This feels like that's what it's doing for the Nationals. And if you look at the way that they played over the past month, like they went through that losing streak where they lost 7 in a row. But since then, they won a series against the Mariners, who are leading the AL West right now. It's only by a half game, but they're leading the AL West right now. They played okay against the Giants. They lost that one 2-1 next. Or that doesn't help my point at all. So next. They won a series against the Braves. They're a half game back of the Braves. The Braves have this huge payroll. They're supposed to be one of the best teams in baseball, period. Nats are half game back of the Braves. They sweep the Orioles. The Orioles have been a little bit of a disaster, but since that big losing streak, the team's been playing really, really well. I think this was used and dropped at a time to help motivate the team, and I think it's working. I got high expectations for what's going to happen starting tonight in Arizona. You'll be able to hear that game on our sister station, 106.7 The Fan, first pitch at 9:40. Coming up next, we get into some Denton's Daily News, including why mainstream sports fans have gotten incredibly soft. Rick Kamla joins us at 11. No go anywhere.
All right. Nats had a big rally in the 10th inning. They scored 7 runs, the most in franchise history, to beat the Seattle Mariners by a score of 9-3. Mackenzie Gore continues to show off his ace potential, becomes the first pitcher in the MLB this season to reach 100 strikeouts. He pitched 6 innings, had 8 Ks, and only gave up 4 hits. The Knicks, they extend their series against the Pacers with a 111-94 win. Jalen Brunson gets back to his usual self, putting up 32, 5, and 5. The Edmonton Oilers, they closed out the Dallas Stars last night. Connor McDavid with the game-winning goal. They win 6-3. Tonight, quiet night around the world of sports, but the Nats, they will continue their West Coast road trip. They'll take on the Arizona Diamondbacks tonight. Jake Irvin expected to get the start. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave starts at 9:10. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980 and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1 and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
It's Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Friday. Rick Kamler is going to join us in 15 minutes, get his thoughts on the NBA postseason, if anyone can beat the Thunder at this point, and whether or not the Eastern Conference Finals will end in game number 6. That's in 15 minutes. But now, let's get to some Denton's Daily News. Before we get to the main story, which this main story is something that I got a lot to get off of my chest. Did you listen to the new Clips song today, Max? Are you a Clips fan?
I have not heard it.
Oh, you got to go listen to it.
I will.
And if you're not a Clips fan, you will become a Clips fan if you love good hip-hop.
Sure.
Pusha T, fan of the Commanders. Pusha T, also fan of the Washington Wizards. He had a bobblehead night last year.
Really?
Yeah, my brother came home randomly from a Wizards game when he and I were living together, and he said, here. And I was like, what is this? He said, it's a Pusha T bobblehead. I went to the game, didn't know they were giving them out, and they were giving them out. So he gave me a Pusha T bobblehead. I don't know that I have it anymore, but at one point,
Did you send it to a certain specific man in Toronto?
I would have loved to.
Yeah.
Apparently, I know where he lives now.
Just a thought.
Just a thought. Something tells me that would not be received very well.
No, that's why you don't put a return address on it. But.
No, not at all. All right, so the big story that I wanted to get to, it does revolve around the NBA here, so bear with me. But our generation, not our generation, but the celebrity generation has become just completely and utterly soft. Pat McAfee, which we're going to play this for you in just a second, in game number 4, he was there in Indiana. That is where he resides. That is where Pat McAfee does his show on ESPN, if you were unaware of that. He was in Indiana. They gave him a live microphone to hype up the crowd. Pat McAfee has a background in doing media, and he now works with the WWE. He is, if you've ever watched him, he plays up his personality to a very high degree, especially with a live microphone. So I want to play what Pat McAfee said, and then I will respond by telling you why New York fans and Indiana fans are softer than Charmin.
Indianapolis, Indiana. We got some big wigs from the big city in the building. Spike Lee is here. Ben Stiller is here. Timothy Chalamet is here. Let's send these sons of bitches back to New York with their ears ringing. Let's turn this on.
So Pat McAfee did that prior to game 4. Indiana went and waxed to New York in game number 4 behind a crazy Tyrese Halliburton performance. Ben Stiller then went on a podcast on one of the New York channels and basically said that he didn't like that very much. He was confused as to what was going on. He thought him and McAfee were boys. He didn't understand why he was brought into that conversation. So Ben Stiller said that. Soft. Incredibly, unbelievably soft. And Ben Stiller is from the generation, not that he does this, but he is from a generation that complains about how today's NBA is soft. That things were better in the 90s when you could basically get in a UFC fight in the paint and you could knock one another around. But he did not like that he was involved in the Pat McAfee promo. A guy in the entertainment business did not like being called out. Like he hasn't been doing this media tour of his own with the Knicks' success. If you've noticed this, maybe you haven't, but now that I will point it out, you will not be able to unnotice it. Ben Stiller's been very present.
He's been on a heater since Severance.
But he's been very present. He is always courtside, hanging out with Timothy Chalamet, hanging out with Jon Stewart, traveling to Indiana. If you're going to travel as a celebrity to the opposition's opponent territory, you're going to get trash talked a little bit, which I don't even think what McAfee said was that bad.
No,
it's not like he said Ben Stiller's movie sucks, Severance sucks, and we want him to cry. He didn't say that. He just said there are New York fans here. We're going to kick their ass. Perfectly fine. Perfectly okay. So Ben Stiller didn't like that. He did all these podcasts. He was tweeting about it as well. And I'm like, how soft is this guy? Just take it, move on. But it got better or worse, depending on what your perception of this is.
So better.
So John Mellencamp is in attendance for game number 4. John Cougar Mellencamp, a little bit before my generation, but very familiar. You know, Jack and Diane, great song, was listening to that earlier this week. That's full shoot, by the way. I was in my classic rock phase before the Clips came back and blessed my music taste. So John Mellencamp was in attendance. John Mellencamp puts out a statement on Twitter.
Incredibly funny, like it's just a background of him. I think that's his wife that's with him.
I would assume that this is his wife. So John Mellencamp puts on his Twitter, and I've retweeted this if you want to go see it at the Denton Day. But John Mellencamp puts on his Twitter an apology on behalf of Indiana. But he puts the statement over a picture of himself. It's not the Notes app. It's not a Word document. It damn sure ain't no letterhead. He puts an apology statement over top of himself. And what he says is, the Knicks-Pacers game have been very entertaining for anyone who likes basketball or sports. I attended Game 4 in Indianapolis. Then a paragraph break. This is just not great grammar, but whatever. Hoosier hospitality. I was embarrassed when somebody, under whose direction I don't know, called out some of the people who had made the trip from New York to support their team, and in turn, support our team. The audience booed these people. I'd say that was not Hoosier hospitality. One could say it's poor sportsmanship. I was not proud to be a Hoosier, and I lived here my entire life. On behalf of most Hoosiers, I would like to apologize for our poor behavior. I'm sure the Pacers had nothing to do with this smackdown. Signed, John Mellencamp. Soft! Oh, my God. When did everybody become a bunch of... I can't say that on air. When did everybody become a bunch of wussies? I thought sports were supposed to be fun. I'm not saying you should be knocking dudes out on the street. I'm not saying you should be hitting dudes with trash bags, stabbing guys at bars. I don't want none of that. But you can't boo the other team. You can't boo the fans of the other team. What world are we living in? Has this dude never been to a basketball game before? What McAfee said wasn't even bad. I'm not like a McAfee truther or anything, but it's not even like what he said was bad.
The death of smack talk in this era. Like, what has happened to my beautiful sport, Denton?
What is, like, are we supposed to golf clap? Oh, look, the Knicks are in town. Yay! Oh, my God, Ben Stiller, thank you for gracing the great state of Indiana with your presence. Timothy Chalamet, is that you dressed like Guy Fieri?
I love dude.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you so much. Wow, Jalen Brunson sure is good. Look at how good he is. Oh, my God. I'm just so happy that I get to see Jalen Brunson. Wow. What a treat this is.
Yay. This is the best.
This sucks. I mean, unbelievable. You can't boo at sporting events. I'm not saying cussing dudes out, which, by the way, I did see something on Twitter that said McAfee cussed these dudes out. He didn't cuss them out. My definition of being cussed out apparently is very different than some people on the internet or some people that are celebrities. These self-important douches that just can't get over the fact that people are going to be a little rabid. Indiana hasn't been to a final in 20 some odd years. They're going to be a little rabid when a fan from the Knicks shows up, especially a celebrity that has not gotten out in front of the camera for the past 2 weeks. 3 weeks if you're Ben Stiller. That guy has been everywhere. Chalamet has been everywhere. And to the credit of Timothy Chalamet, he has not said anything about this. He seems to at least somewhat get it.
He was busy making out with Kylie Jenner at halftime. So
good for him,
yeah, he's doing great.
He got over it because he grew up on this sort of stuff. He's a blog boy. That man was living on New York Knicks message boards the same way that I was living on Redskins message boards and Wizards message boards when I was 14 years old. He understands it, but these old dudes just trying to come in and ruin our sport. You can be sportsmanlike and still boo. I think those two things are very, very, like, I actually get angry when people do not boo. But the fact that John Mellencamp is trying to roast his own fan base because of some nonsense Hoosier hospitality, go touch grass, you dork.
Go to one hockey game and you will be appalled.
This dude did rock and roll in the 80s, but he can't handle somebody booing the New York Knicks and booing Ben Stiller. And again, just the debauchery to put this statement over a picture of yourself. If this doesn't scream unbelievable self-importance, I don't know if he's trying to get in the good graces of the Hollywood Illuminati by trying to defend Ben Stiller or what? This was so soft. I already didn't want the Knicks to win, and I understand, like, most Knicks fans are not like this. It's just the celebrities, the self-important ones that are so out of touch with reality and how basic human beings interact at sporting events. Like, for example, I'm going to put him on blast here. I apologize. Thankfully, he has a microphone and he can defend himself. Video producer Brian is a great dude. He's a Cowboy fan. We talk some trash. We let him know
every day,
but he's a great dude.
You should hear the things Jeff Walker says to him every day.
Jeff Walker said some things to me today that were
he always does, doesn't he?
But we talk some trash, and it's cool. We're all good, all friends. Yeah. Brian, would you agree with that, or are we just going overboard?
He gives a nod.
He gives a nod. Mic.
Yes, everything is fine.
Everything is fine. We just talk. Hey, you Cowboy fan, don't like that. Talk some trash. Keep it moving. Anthony McBarnett, AMAC.
Every time he walks in here.
Produces Chris Russell, Giants fan. Talk some trash. Everything's good. Everything's cool. You keep it moving. These soft celebrities who don't interact with real human beings, they just surround themselves with unmitigated yes men, do not know how to behave at sports, and I don't want them commenting on sports. I don't want to see no more John Cougar Mellencamp posts. I might boycott Jack and Diane for at least 2 days, and then I'll listen to it again on Sunday because it is a good song. But this is so soft. So soft. And I'm sure, God help me if Ben Stiller jumps on a podcast and talks about how the 90s NBA was better than the 2020s NBA. If he's taken this approach of, I didn't think I was going to get called out. Well, I put myself front row at an Indiana game. And then, by the way, invited Pat McAfee, didn't buy a ticket for Pat McAfee, just said, hey, you can come. You're soft if you don't. You can come spend $70,000 to sit courtside. Soft.
That Pat McAfee contract's paying a lot at ESPN. He could probably afford it.
He definitely could have afforded it. He just didn't want to. Still soft. Pacers in 6. Rick Kamla joins us on the other side. We'll get his thoughts on the Eastern Conference Finals. Can either team challenge the Thunder in the NBA Finals? Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Friday at the Denton Day on Twitter. Continuing our conversation about the NBA postseason. The Knicks forcing a Game 6, 111-94, taking down Indiana. Joining us now to make a little bit of sense of what we saw last night and figuring out who, if anyone, can beat the Thunder. My guy, Rick Kamla, Sports Ethos, covering the NBA for them, giving out some picks. We'll get a pick from him before we let him off the hook here. Cam, what's up, man? How are you?
Denton, what's going on, my brother? You good?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We get a Game 6 on a Saturday. Thank God. I was so worried that we were going to go an extended period of time with no games. So I'm glad the Knicks were able to give us at least something on Saturday.
Well, I had Indiana last night, so tomorrow when there's hoops on, I'll be happy. But I misjudged that. I thought Cat was limping so bad and stuff in Game 4. I thought that was going to be a huge issue, and obviously, to me it was like that one final party. I think Indiana's going to do them in here in Game 6, but. I played the money line. It was like 50 to win 120. Feeling good about it, but we ripped up that ticket, Denton.
Hey, as long as you get back on the horse on Saturday, that's all that matters, right?
Exactly. I mean, I'm up, so I had some surplus to play with, but that was not well thought out.
What did you make of the way that the Knicks were able to slow the pace down a little bit for Indiana in game number 5?
I don't think Indiana really brought the noise. Okay. They had just that really awesome emotional victory in Game 4. Hallie's dad's back in the building. He has a 1-of-1 playoff game, and he was dreadful last night. I think, and you know this, a lot of times when teams get up 3-1, and then they go on the road for that Game 5. That's not a motivation game. I mean, it's a closeout game, but it's a death game for the other team, right? And for the team that's up 3-1, I think human nature sets in a little bit, and you exhale a little bit, and you have that whole thought, well, shoot, we lose tonight, we just go back home and we win Game 6. I think, we saw that in the Boston-New York series, Game 5 at Boston. That's what New York did, right? They were up 3-1. I think they kind of half-assed. That was the Luke Cornett game, right? And then Game 6 back in New York, and New York closes them out. So we've seen that pattern happen a lot. I should have known it was going to go down that way. My bad. But I will be on Indiana tomorrow night, Denton.
Do you think that Tyrese Halliburton is getting the proper criticism for the game that he had last night after that iconic 1-of-1 performance in Game 4?
Well, here's my thing. Criticism is like born of like a lot of failure, right? And okay, he had one dreadful game after, a 30-10-15 with no turnovers. Nobody's ever done that. I don't think there should be any criticism at all. I think everybody should just kind of know that's the what's the word? It's kind of like a gravy game. You don't have to win that game. And a lot of people, they got to close it out. Otherwise, here come the Knicks. Indiana's not looking at it that way. I can promise you. Maybe bettors are, maybe fans are and stuff. I don't know. In that locker room, they're not looking at it that way. They're like, we sucked in Game 5. We'll get back to our pace in Game 6. And so being at home, I think, helps the pace thing. And just like going to the court with a mindset for destruction and playing the way you play. And I just don't think Indiana had that last night. That was New York's game. They had all the motivation on their side. So I don't think there should be any criticism on Hallie at all. I think he's an absolutely amazing player. Here's another 1-of-1 for you, Denton. He is the first player in the history of the NBA. This is going to blow your mind. He is the first person in the history of the NBA to average 20 points, 10 assists, and 40% on threes in a season. That's right. Nobody's ever done it. So we're talking about a historical, generational, first ballot, future Hall of Famer here. And if he shoots 25% in the NBA Finals against OKC, maybe we can start levying some criticism against this man, but not right now.
How far is the gap between Rick Carlisle and the other remaining coaches in the NBA, or just everyone else in the NBA period, if you think he is the best in the NBA right now?
I don't think look, Carlisle's my guy, man. He's a deadhead. I'm a deadhead. Me and Rick go way back. Like, he's my favorite coach. I'll tell you that, by far. But is he the best coach? He's up there. I mean, Spoelstra's up there. Kerr is up there. But, Carlisle, Ty Lue is up there. I think I know people bang on Doc Rivers, but you look at his resume. I think Doc Rivers is hovering in that conversation for best coach in the league right now. Yeah, he's up there. I'm not going to diss Rick at all. I think he's a phenomenal coach. He has found roles for all of these guys, and it seems like they're happy. And Obi Toppin to me is a starting player, and he's been a bench player, and he just always comes through for them. TJ McConnell is one of the best backup point guards in the league. Mathurin, could be a starter. I don't know. To me, he's kind of a gunner off the bench, but he's a hell of a player. And he's made it work. Carlisle started Nebhard as a rookie. Nebhard didn't know what he was doing at that point, in my opinion. What do I know, right? I'm like, why are you starting Nebhard? And he was starting him over Mathurin, right? Well, guess what? Now he's groomed Nebhard into like this really solid glue guy, role player, jack of all trades. Right. When Hallie's out, he spikes, plays defense, makes shots, passes the rock, right? They made the Sabonis and Halliburton trade, and then that freed up Miles Turner, because Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis was a little bit like same on same, two bigs and stuff like that. So it got them playing faster to just have the one big and then have, basically four wings. So I just think they've done a great job all the way up to their czar, Kevin Pritchard, who's another one of my longtime NBA homies. I'm super excited for their success. They're not going to win this thing. Nobody's beaten OKC, but I'm excited for Indiana's success.
Rick Kamler with me here, Sports Ethos on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here. Does Indiana match up better with Oklahoma City, even though we are both in agreement that Oklahoma City is going to win this thing?
I mean, I think Indiana can really battle them because Indiana's deep. They're really deep. To me, they're the third deepest team in the league behind OKC and then Cleveland. And I know Cleveland's, Denton gone and forgotten, but God bless America. Are they deep? They got dudes, man. And so does Indiana. I mean, Indiana's got stay ready group guys, third unit guys like Jarris Walker that are badasses just waiting in the wing. So I think Indiana's going to get a couple of games off OKC. I do. Look, the OKC Minnesota thing was a clash of, a team on a mission and just, they're a freaking wagon. Okay. And then you've got the whole thing with Minnesota was Ant-Man, and I love Ant-Man, and I'm not being critical of him. I'm just calling it what it is. He's 23 years old. He doesn't know how to do this yet. And nobody can come help him, right? It's not, Ant-Man needs more help, blah, blah. No. Stop that. What needs to happen is he just needs to keep playing. Like he said, does it hurt? No, it doesn't hurt. I'm young. There's going to be a lot of these opportunities. I think that's a little bit flimsy by him. You don't always make the West Finals every year. I mean, come on. So, he's got to understand that. But his point is, dude, I'm 23. I'm figuring this out. So Ant-Man's got to become a full-time killer. He can't be a part-time killer, right? Where, my teammates will do it tonight, or they're doubling me. I got to get off the ball tonight. F all of that. Jordan didn't just accept that. Kobe didn't just accept that. Bron doesn't just accept that. You've got to find a way to go Hulk smash on these dudes, no matter what the circumstances of the game are, because he needs to dictate the circumstances of the game. But he's not there yet. SGA is there. He dictates the terms of the game. People call it foul baiting or whatever. I call it smart basketball. If you're going to move and angle and do it all within the rules and get the tweet and go to the line 14 times and slow the game down, get in a rhythm and just death by paper cut, well, then frickin' kill him by paper cut, man. I have no problem with it at all. I think it's high level competition, Denton. Everybody's hating on him. Everybody's, oh, you suck and foul baiter, blah, blah, blah. And he's just out there doing his thing. I think it's absolute. It's not like super entertaining, but it's super effective, and I like it.
The foul baiting thing and the free throw merchant thing, Rick, almost just feels lazy from people that don't understand the flow of basketball. Because like you just said, he's getting in a rhythm, and he constantly gets himself into a rhythm by doing that. I feel like everyone that's critical of him for that is lazy. All great players get to the free throw line. That's what happens when you drive to the basket.
I mean, thank you. What can I say? High five, Denton. Yes, what you said. But people got to search for stuff. I was laughing. After OKC pounded Minnesota, whatever day that was, the next day on ESPN, is it a dynasty? It's the stupidest question in sports right now. No, they haven't won a championship yet. What can it be a dynasty? And I'm not like let them win a championship. Then maybe I'll tell you what, then I learned a lesson. NBA radio. All right, Denver wins the chip. I start, a little, they brew in a dynasty, right? Immediately after that, guys started getting hurt and stuff started unraveling with the team. I'm like, that was such a dumb radio take right there. I'm not doing that again. I just think it's too early. They haven't even won a finals game yet. We're talking about dynasty. I mean, give me a break, man.
Speaking of SGA, what outside of the ability to get to the free throw line, it does feel like he is such a great leader for this team. In watching him, and especially where he came from with Los Angeles, what makes him as special as he is?
Great question. I think it's like speed, gears, tempo. He's obviously really intelligent and really competitive. But and I noticed this at Kentucky. He just glides. He's so smooth. Just that dribble is a yo-yo. He slaloms through dudes. And so when he's coming downhill on you and he slams the brakes on it about the free throw line and he just pulls back for that mid-range jumper, dude, that's automatic, man. Nobody can get to it. You're basically make or miss at that point, and he doesn't miss that shot very much. He's not an exceptional jump shooter. He's getting, better at it, but his whole thing is being slithery, being crafty, being mid-range, getting to the free throw line, and he's so freaking good at it, man. I call him Mr. Consistent. That's my nickname for him. The guy's 30 every game. He's not 40 then 20, 40 then 20. He's 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 every game. It's amazing. Led the league in scoring. He's going to probably do that multiple times here. He's really cracked the code, Denton, of how to score, how to play his game at the NBA level. You can't speed him up. And he just plays the game at his pace. And he's got the other team wrapped around his pinky. He will share the rock, although, like the Ant-Man thing, it's very, very, very important for OKC, for SGA to take a ton of shots and a ton of free throws and score a ton of points. And he does that every game. Ant-Man needs to understand that, dude, you can't have a game with 13 shots. That cannot happen.
Right.
Every single game, you've got to put up 20-plus shots. Otherwise, we're going to have a conversation about it. And again, I love Ant-Man, and he'll figure it out. He's 23. SGA's 26, Denton. He's there. Ant-Man is 23. He's almost there.
Yeah, Ant-Man needs to be taking 13 shots in a half, not 13 shots in a game. Like, he needs to just be spraying that bad boy. Before we get to your official pick for game number 6, just a couple of outside of the postseason questions. By the time we tip off in 2020, I guess 2025, but the 25-26 season, Giannis Antetokounmpo is wearing what uniform?
Oh, man. I'm going to say Houston. Denton, I haven't made calls and, any of that. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip here.
Mm-hmm.
The Lakers don't have the assets to me. Austin Reeves is not enough to get Giannis. And I love Austin Reeves. He's just not. It's got to be Austin Reeves and I don't know if the Lakers have that. The Rockets have, and I thought this when the Durant stuff started kind of bubbling up. And I don't want the Rockets to trade for Kevin Durant. And I love Kevin Durant. But why would you eat away at probably the second best young core in the NBA behind OKC for like a 37-year-old oft-injured future Hall of Fame? That would be so freaking stupid. But if you're going to trade like Jabari Smith and maybe Cam Whitmore and maybe Reed Shepherd, I don't know, and maybe a couple picks, like I just think you could really hit Milwaukee with really strong young prospects that they could forge their future with. You could give them a bunch of picks, 5, 6 picks, whatever it is. So I'll say Houston, Denton.
At the risk of becoming what Los Angeles became when they traded SGA and he became an MVP, I would assume that no package includes Amen Thompson for Houston, right?
That is correct. They're not going to trade him. Look, I'm not trading Jalen Green or Alfie Şengün. And coming into last season, I was like, that was kind of a big year for me and Jalen Green. Like I needed to see an ascension, improvement on the defensive end, where Ime doesn't have to pull you for Tari Eason in the fourth quarter. And I saw that. Like I saw him defending. I saw him sitting down. I saw a lot of major scoring games. I saw ebbing and flow, and he's kind of runs cold, and then he hits a heater, goes back to cold. So he's a little bit up and down that way. But I like Jalen Green, and I know he struggled in the playoffs again. Super young guy, first playoff series. He's playing against a fading dynasty in Golden State, who obviously has a ton of know-how. They're just smarter than him in a variety of ways, so he'll figure it out. But I wouldn't trade Jalen Green. I wouldn't trade Alfie. I really like Reed Shepherd, Denton. I think he's a young stud. I think they should decline the team option on Fred VanVleet, put Amen at the 1, and then move Reed Shepherd into a 20-minute per game kind of role.
Yeah,
that's how I'd roll. Because I know VanVleet had some big playoff games, but he was awful in the regular season. I mean, absolutely dreadful. He shot like 37%, dude.
And especially if he's not going to be a part of this moving forward, gave some veteran leadership. Thank you for your services. Go somewhere else, right?
And it's $40 million, bro. It's like $40-some million for Fred VanVleet. Like, I'm not paying that. There's no way.
I'm not paying. I don't care how high this salary cap is. I am paying that. Rick, before we get you out of here, official pick for game number 6 on Saturday.
I think Indiana's going to win the game, and it might not be close. I think, like I said, I just think they let their guard down. I think they exhaled. That was, Ben Stiller and Timothy Chalamet and, Tracy Morgan and Spike Lee. And, that I think that was that one last Nick party, man. I think the Pacers are going to the NBA Finals. I think they're going to close them out on Saturday night. I think Halliburton's going to have another exhilarating game. And, I just don't think the Knicks can do that again, man. I don't. So that's what I got. I think the Pacers are going to close them out on Saturday night. This is a can't lose situation, Denton, because if the Knicks win, then we all get a game 7. So there's no losers here.
No, yeah, game 7 would be so great from a content perspective. I mean, being able to talk about something on Monday would be sensational. Rick, always appreciate it, my friend. Hope you're doing well. We'll do it again soon.
Yes, sir, Denton. Peace out, man.
That is Rick Kamla, Sports Ethos, good enough to jump on with us here, give us a couple plays. He's taking the Pacers. I'm taking the Pacers. I think the Pacers laying that 3.5 in game number 6 against the Knicks is something that you cannot miss. That's going to end basketball talk on the Kevin Sheehan Show. When we get back, are the Commanders getting the proper love from a roster building standpoint this offseason? We'll let you know when we get back. You can jump on the phone lines. Where do you think the Commanders roster ranks as it currently sits across the NFL? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Team 980, Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on a Friday. Ben Standing coming up in about 35 minutes here on the program. He's going to join us at noon as he does each and every Monday and Friday. There's been a lot of takes regarding the Commanders this offseason at various different platforms, most of which has been very, very positive about the offseason, about Jaden Daniels, about the way and the moves that Adam Peters has made. We played the clip from you yesterday from the latest Commanders Log episode, where even the coaching staff and the ownership group is getting in on the meme of let Adam Peters cook. But it is not all good across the major media sources. Here's what Damian Woody said on Get Up yesterday about Washington and potentially taking a step back in 2025.
Listen, I tested the play button on this this player like multiple times, and then when you of course right when you throw to it, it just doesn't play. There we go.
He took his team all the way to the NFC Championship game. What would constitute a successful second season after that debut act, particularly with all the pieces they've added? Damian Woody.
Jaden Daniels could have a better season, but the Washington Commanders might take a step back. I thought the Washington Commanders overachieved last year. Jaden Daniels was spectacular, no question about it. But if you look at the whole of the Washington Commanders, like really they shouldn't have been on the field with the Philadelphia Eagles last year. They actually might take a little bit of a step backwards. I think their defense is underwhelming, and some of these other NFC teams are on the come up. The Rams and some of these other teams. So Jaden Daniels could be better, but they might take a little bit of a step back.
Jeff, what do you think?
So
that's the proper level.
Yeah, I don't care. Sorry, Jeff Saturday. I don't care about Jeff Saturday. Here's the thing. I agree with some of what Damian Woody said. First of all, it's obvious. Yes, they overachieved. Are you kidding me? They had the number 2 overall pick the year prior, and they made it to the NFC Championship game. So yes, everybody should agree that they overachieved last year. What I agree with is that the defense is still not great. There are still holes on the defense, specifically guys that can get after the passer. They did not address that this offseason with a much more difficult schedule and really no lulls in the schedule. Last year, there were a couple of periods in the schedule where you look at it and you say, all right, not that a game in the NFL is easy, but this is going to be easy. There are none of those this year for Washington and their schedule. What I would push back on and say that if Jaden Daniels is better than what he was last year, that they are still going to be in a position where they're going to be competing in the NFC. If you think Washington is going to take a massive step back, I don't think that coincides with Jaden Daniels taking a step forward, because he was already a top 5 quarterback by nearly every statistical metric in 2024. If he gets better than that, the team that was led by their offense, unless the defense completely falls off a cliff, but in fairness, I don't think they can fall off a cliff because they weren't on a cliff. They weren't all that good last year. Jaden Daniels was overcoming a lot of it. They couldn't get off the field when they needed to. I've had so many people get at me for the Philadelphia game, and fans have thought that Washington has gotten much closer to Philadelphia. I think they've gotten closer. I still think Philadelphia is by far and away the best built team in the NFL. The Commanders haven't done enough on the defensive side of the football to get pressure on the quarterback. You can point to plays in the NFC Championship and say, Denton, if this was different, the game looks different. And you're right. That holding call that was not called that led to a big play to A.J. Brown on a 4th down. Saquon Barkley, I think it was Louvu. He had him around the neck. That should have been called. The turnovers against Philadelphia sucked. Those need to be adjusted. The problem is that wasn't the first time that it happened against Philadelphia. So if you want to take it in a vacuum and say this would not happen again if you played them, you can say that, but it did happen twice against Philadelphia. That defense has a knack for turning the football over, something that Washington's defense hasn't had in years, decades at this point. I think the last team that did a really good job of being a turnover forcing machine was that 2012 team. That's why they were able to make the deep playoff run, not the deep playoff run, but to make the playoff run that they did was because you had the offense playing well and you had the defense constantly getting off the field and not giving up long and sustained drives the same way that the defense did last year, specifically to Philadelphia. Los Angeles, I think, is going to be a better team this year in terms of better compared to what they were last year. I'm still taking Jane Daniels over everybody in the NFC. Line them up. I don't care. Jalen Hurts, Stafford, whoever it is. If you like Jared Goff, I'll pray for you. But you can line him up in there too. Line them all up. I'm taking Jane Daniels over all of them. The team, though, I don't think is built in a way that I feel incredibly comfortable with. And there's a lot of other people across the NFL media space that feel something similar. So Max sent me this article. It's from NFL.com, and it comes from Eric Edholm. We like Eric Edholm. Great guy, great guest. Comes on the program a lot. These are the top 10 most complete teams for the 2025 season, the most well-rounded squads. So he's ranking the rosters. He only does 10. Philadelphia is number 1. Duh. They literally won a Super Bowl without blitzing. When was the last time? I mean, we were screaming at the end of the season telling Joe Witt Jr. to blitz more because they couldn't get pressure with just 4. They won a Super Bowl by getting pressure with just 4. Washington is not there yet. Even if you think they've closed the gap, they have not closed the gap to that point. Suggesting so would be drinking the Kool-Aid. So Philadelphia is number 1 on this list. Baltimore is number 2 on this list. I think there's a gap there. The Ravens don't have good wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins is ancient at this point. Maybe he has a little bit of gas left in the tank, but who is Lamar going to throw to? Mark Andrews is old. Mark Andrews might come in with a little bit of the yips for how last season ended too, because, I mean, that ball was in his hands, and all of a sudden it wasn't in his hands anymore. So they got the Baltimore Ravens at number 3, or at number 2. Detroit at number 3. I would put Detroit over Baltimore. It feels like they're leading because Lamar Jackson is the quarterback of Detroit. I wish the quarterback rankings were a little bit more consistent with this in terms of how much value you're putting in quarterbacks. You'll explain what I mean coming up here as we get down this list. Kansas City at 4. They still don't have wide receivers, but fine. Buffalo at 5. They still don't have wide receivers, but fine. None of the good AFC teams have wide receivers except for the Cincinnati Bengals. It's actually astonishing. Travis Kelce's old. At some point, he needs to retire and just be the trophy husband to Taylor Swift. She got billions of dollars, my man. Like, just enjoy the fruits of her hard work. They got Buffalo at number 5. Their leading receiver, their number 1 wide receiver entering the 2025 season is Keon Coleman. And then it's a who's who. And not a who's who in a good way. It's like a literally, who is that? Who is who? Who is wide receiver 2? Who is wide receiver 3? Here's where I mentioned about the quarterback, why I have a very big issue with this list. At number 6 is the Minnesota Vikings. Huh? The Minnesota Vikings with J.J. McCarthy, who has played 0 real NFL games. They are 6 on this list. Defensively, great. Offensively, around J.J. McCarthy, T.J. Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jordan Mason, Aaron Jones, good weapons, really good weapons for one J.J. McCarthy. They added Jonathan Allen on defense. That defense last year was really, really good. They added Jonathan Allen. But that quarterback question is a really big question because however you feel about Sam Darnold, I don't love him. Generally speaking, Kevin likes him. I'm not going to say love. We've gotten into arguments about that, but Kevin likes him. I don't love Sam Darnold. I have no idea what J.J. McCarthy is. I have no idea. Nobody knows what he is. The guy literally hasn't played. I think there's going to be some sort of rude awakening from a lot of people in the media when they realize what C.J. Stroud did 2 years ago and what Jaden Daniels did last year. Those are not normal things. I know there's a lot of guys that are coming out of college who have played a lot of college football, but you don't just step into the NFL and be amazing. What happened with Stroud and Daniels was very much a once and a twice in a lifetime. It's a once in a lifetime thing that just happened to happen in consecutive years. Then I think you'll see a multi-year drought with top quarterbacks that get drafted, not exactly stepping into success immediately, which is totally normal, by the way. It shouldn't be that you want your guy like a J.J. McCarthy where you're looking at anything less than 11 or 12 wins of failure for him in year number 1. Regardless, they have the Vikings at number 6. They got Tampa Bay at number 7. Everybody loves Tampa Bay. They drafted one receiver in the first round, and it feels like everyone and their mother is all aboard the Tampa Bay Bucks hype train. They lose Liam Cohen, who is a great offensive mind with Baker Mayfield, yet still everyone's like, nope, all the way with Tampa Bay. All the way with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, they are on the come up. They play in a terrible division. They're going to win a lot of games. They are on the come up. They got Green Bay at number 8. They added a wide receiver in Matthew Golden in the draft. Defensively, I still think there's some questions there. They put San Francisco at number 9. Brock Purdy got paid. They lose Deebo Samuel, but they think Ricky Pearsall is going to be really good. Add a couple guys on defense, specifically in the draft. Mikael Williams, I thought, was a great pick for San Francisco. So they got San Francisco at number 9. And then at number 10, they have the Denver Broncos. You will notice I just listed 10 teams, none of which are the Washington Commanders. The Commanders, according to this article, and this is not the only one, I have another one, but according to this article, the Commanders are not a top 10 roster in the NFL. Unfortunately, there is not an explanation as to why they do not have a top 10 roster. I would say it's because of the defensive front. I think the defensive secondary is going to be fine. Somehow yesterday it got construed that I hate Marshawn Lattimore. I don't. My suggestion yesterday was if you are going to acquire Jalen Ramsey, you might as well ditch the aging corner. If Lattimore is fully healthy, Lattimore can be a good player in this league. Full stop there. Do not hate Marshawn Lattimore. I just don't need Marshawn Lattimore and Jalen Ramsey to then stifle the growth of Mikey Sanderstill and Trey Amos, operating under the assumption that Mikey Sanderstill and Trey Amos are going to be around this organization and the backbone of the defensive backfield in a perfect world 40 years to come. I just don't want to stifle their growth by having 2 old dudes back there. I want 1 old dude. I don't need 2 old dudes back there. I don't hate Marshawn Lattimore. I think the defensive backfield is fine for Washington. I think the linebacker group is fine for Washington. I think the front 4 is not fine. That must be the reason why they are not on the top 10 list here, because I could do the same song and dance with the offense. Offensive line is fine. I'm very, very comfortable and confident with what they have going at the offensive line. Running back is kind of but running back is not going to dictate the difference between a 7-win team and a 12-win team. That's not going to happen. Saquon Barkley was awesome last year for Philadelphia. They had the best offensive line and 2 really good wide receivers on the outside. That's why he was as good as he was. Derrick Henry was awesome for Baltimore last year. They had Lamar Jackson as a run threat. That was supposed to be what Brian Robinson was. Maybe not to that number in terms of rush yards and production, but he was supposed to be very similar, and he was not. So the running back position is weak on the offense unless the 7th round pick, Ja'Cory Crooksy Merritt, becomes a superstar. It's possible. We've seen that happen deep in the draft before. Not plausible, though. So the running back position is weak. The front 4 is weak. But I would still take Washington's roster and put it above Denver. And I would borderline put them above Green Bay. Minnesota, even though I don't like J.J. McCarthy, you can make an argument for because defensively they're about as strong as they come. Green Bay, I really don't think is. I don't think Green Bay is monumentally better at any position than Washington is. Not a single one. In fact, I would argue that if you do a position-by-position breakdown, Washington would have the edge in nearly every single one. So them being ahead of the Commanders does not make a whole lot of sense to me. The other list that I have is a Pro Football Focus list, which did the same thing. They ranked Washington at 11 in the NFL. They ranked them as the 11th best roster behind more of the same. The only difference was the Texans were on this list and the Rams were on this list as well. So the 49ers did not make Pro Football Focus's top 10. And who was the other one that dropped? There was another team that dropped. The Packers, I don't think, were on the top 10 either. So the Packers and the 49ers were not in there, but the Texans and the Rams made Pro Football Focus's top 10. Washington made 11. Washington was above Green Bay, obviously, if Green Bay was not in the top 10 and Washington was 11. So they were above Green Bay. They were above San Francisco. San Francisco is going to be polarizing, I think, when you look at their roster build because people still have this affinity for Kyle Shanahan, but everyone is seemingly on the fence about Brock Purdy. So I want to get your take on this. 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Does Washington have a top 10 roster in the NFL right now? Are these lists wrong? Did they get it right? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Ben Standing is going to join us in 20 minutes. Your calls on this topic when we get back. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980.
All right, the Nats, they rally big in the 10th inning. They score 7 runs. That's the most in franchise history to beat the Seattle Mariners by a score of 9-3. Mackenzie Gore continues to show off his ace potential. He becomes the first pitcher in the MLB this season to reach 100 strikeouts. He pitched 6 innings, had 8 Ks, and only gave up 4 hits. The Knicks, they extend their series with the Indiana Pacers with a 111-94 win. Jalen Brunson gets back to his usual self, putting up 32, 5, and 5. The Edmonton Oilers, they closed out the Dallas Stars last night. Connor McDavid scores the game-winning goal. They win 6-3. Tonight, it is a quiet night around the world of sports. The Nats will continue their West Coast road trip. They take on the Diamondbacks tonight at 9:10. Jake Irvin expected to start. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave, again, starts at 9:10. First pitch at 9:40. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Friday on the Team 980. Ben standing in 15 minutes here on the program. Currently, we are discussing at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Where does Washington's roster rank across the NFL? Eric Edholm, NFL.com, did not have them in the top 10. A list from Pro Football Focus also did not have them in the top 10. The PFF list had them at 11. The list from Eric Edholm only went to 10. So we don't know where they would have fallen after that. Edholm also didn't have the Rams on the list, which I would have thought the Rams would be on the list for just about everybody. But they were not on that list. So my question to you at 301-230-0980 is, where does Washington's roster rank across the NFL? I would have them in the top 10. I would not have them very high in the top 10. We're talking like probably 8 at the absolute max, but more in the realm of 9 or 10 because they do not have a dominant guy that can get after the passer. Frankie Louvu might be that guy, but he's much more of like your off-ball linebacker. If he's going to blitz every single time, you might as well just shift him to defensive end. But I don't know that he has the great size for defensive end. He has good size for an off-ball linebacker rusher. I don't know that he has great size as a defensive end that's going to constantly be going up against tackle on a play-in, play-out basis. Whereas now you can kind of manipulate the matchups a little bit, have them stunt, delayed blitzes, things of that nature, and get some favorable matchups, have them sometimes go unevaded to the quarterback. So, Max, I'll ask you as you're sitting here before we get to our phone calls, again at 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980, where does Washington's roster rank right now in the NFL?
It's tough. It's very interesting because looking at this list, like there are definitely ones that are, you'd say certainly better, like the Lions, the Eagles, the Ravens. They all sit at the top. The Chiefs, I feel like are falling off, but their defense is still lights out. Like I think any Commanders fan would kill to have their defense or the Bills defense or something like that. But I honestly, I with the defensive woes / holes, I could put them as high as 7, like where you bump Tampa Bay up, you bump Minnesota down, you bump Green Bay out because I don't think that they should be on this list.
Green Bay being on that list is stunning to me.
It's very weird.
It doesn't make sense.
Even the Niners, like I'm not too convinced. Like the Broncos should be at the bottom of this list. They should be 10 because they have a lot of promise. They had a really good year last year. But yeah, I got to put the Commanders would fall into the 7, 8, 9 range for me. You could put them as high as 7.
8 is the highest I would put Washington. They just don't have the defensive pass rush, but they're better than some of the teams that are ahead of them. Green Bay, they have a better roster construct than Green Bay does. You're onto something with Kansas City. I think defensively they're incredibly strong. But what you're really saying with this list by putting Kansas City there is that Mahomes makes up for a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that Jaden Daniels deserves the amount of respect that Patrick Mahomes does. Mahomes right now is a generation's Michael Jordan. I understand that, but he fills up for a lot of the weaknesses that Washington has right now on a roster.
Very funny that I'm saying this as the guy wearing the Jaden Daniels Rookie of the Year shirt. So take my opinion with a grain of salt, but I'm going to put him up there. I'm putting him up with top 5.
He's an elite. He's a borderline elite quarterback. He had an elite season.
Yeah.
And if he does it again, you put him in that conversation as an elite quarterback. Because if he does what he did, which is the funniest thing of the clip that we played from Damian Woody that kind of led us to this conversation, saying that Jaden Daniels could be better, but Washington could take a step back. If Jaden Daniels plays better than what he did last year, he's going to be in conversations deep into the season for MVP. He was already in conversations on the outskirts last year, but he was in conversations for MVP. Could this guy be the one that wins Rookie of the Year and MVP? And then it didn't end up happening. Josh Allen wins it. Maybe you wanted Lamar Jackson, not relevant to Jaden Daniels. He just didn't end up winning the award. If he has better than what he was in 2024, in 2025, those conversations are going to feature his name significantly more. Let's get to the phones, 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Where does Washington's roster rank right now in the NFL? Let's go to Tom in Columbia. Tom, what's going on?
Hey, good morning. I think that when you have this conversation, it kind of blends in a couple worlds of, as I listen to this, like a conversation of people who are gamers and playing Madden. And then on the other side, you look at it from the men's pro tackle football side. First and foremost, the NFL is a game of injuries. Talent comes after that. But I think when you look at a roster, I think ultimately you have to look at it from the two maxims that control pro football, and it has since day one, is one, you have to stop the run. Absolutely must stop the run. Number two, on offense, you have to run the ball effectively. You do those two things, it'll be a field day, and everybody that loves those aerial circuses they'll see the ball in the air 30, 40, 50 times a game if you can run the ball effectively. But if you're not going to stop the run, it's all bets are off, and it really doesn't matter. So I think when you look at rosters, like you can look at it from the gamer perspective and say, generically, like I'm listening to you guys, and you guys generically say like Detroit's better. Well, Detroit's better how? Like better coaching, better schematics, better physical talent. And then if they are better physical talent, can you take the time and say, well, if you match up this guy at center, their center is grades out better than our center. So it blends so many worlds. It almost becomes like a conversation of middle school kids playing Madden.
Tom, I appreciate it. Here's what I'll say about Detroit. Aiden Hutchinson. The conversation of them potentially being better or worse, it stops and ends there. I know Detroit fans will say, well, there were so many injuries in that divisional game. I don't care. I don't care. You had your quarterback. You just didn't have your top pass rusher. And by the way, it wouldn't have mattered. The Commanders didn't say it.
Didn't say it.
The Commanders would have won regardless. Jane Daniels was not going to be stopped. The thing about Washington is that they can run the football. You know, we've had these conversations about Brian Robinson and what is his role going to be in 2024? Is he still going to be around in 2025 based off of the success or lack thereof that he had in 2024? The Commanders were still third in the NFL in rush offense at 154 yards per game. The only two teams they trailed were Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens and the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia had Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley, two run threats. Lamar and Derrick Henry, obviously, in Baltimore. So if Washington had a run threat in Brian Robinson that performed the way that many of us thought that he would, they might eclipse Philadelphia in that. Because I thought Brian Robinson was going to go over 1,000 yards this year, potentially 1,200 yards this year. He didn't come anywhere close to that. So they can run the football. They can't stop the run. They have shown nothing that would suggest they can stop the run. Now, maybe the guys that they added are going to be just monumentally better than the guys that were on the team last year. But can you set an edge? Can you tackle Saquon Barkley? Can you tackle Bijan Robinson? Can you tackle any of the running backs that Detroit is going to throw at you? Can you tackle Bucky Irving if you wind up playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers deep into the season, right? Can you tackle Aaron Jones, who plays for the Minnesota Vikings? Those are questions that we do not know the answers to as we sit here right now. What they did do last year against the run was play really bad for a quarter and then played really well after that, but that's largely based on the fact that their offense was so good that the run became eliminated by the opposition. That could be the case in 2025. I would certainly not write it out, but I would like, as we move forward in the rebuilding and restoration of glory of this franchise, to make it so that Jane Daniels does not have to be Superman every single week, to make it to where that Jane Daniels does not have to outperform the defense on the other team and then also his defense as well. Like, just don't make him do what he did last year where he was Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man all in one. He did that at LSU too when he won the Heisman. He was Batman, he was Superman, he was Spider-Man all in one. If you can avoid that, you're going to put yourself in a position to be successful in 2025. But they need to get after the pass rusher. If you look at the guys and the teams that are ahead of them, if you just go one by one here, again, for most of them, not for all of them, but for most of them, like Philadelphia, litany of pass rushers. Baltimore, litany of pass rushers, including Mike Green, who they just drafted. Kyle Van Noy had a career year last year. Detroit has Aiden Hutchinson, who's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. That's a bet, plus 750. I would go make it. Kansas City has Chris Jones. They got game wreckers. Washington right now doesn't have a game wrecker. Before we get to Ben Standing, we'll squeeze one more call in here. Let's go to Rod in Maryland. Rod, what's going on?
Good afternoon. I'd have them outside of the top 10. And I say that because we have to look at the totality of the rosters. And I think the special teams is a big knock on them, right? So if you look at just the NFC East, I'd put Phillies, obviously. And I put Dallas only because of the special teams. I think Washington has a better offensive unit. I think Dallas has a better defensive unit, but I think Dallas has the better special teams, the kicker and the kick return. I believe Minnesota's defense will offset I think Minnesota's defense is much better than Washington's, but Washington's offense is better than theirs. Detroit, I'd have them in front of them. I'd have Green Bay, right? And then you go over to the AFC. You look at Baltimore and Cincinnati, Kansas City and San Diego, the Chargers, right? So they're right outside of the top 10. I do believe what you're saying with Jaden making up for a lot, but just as pure roster construction, offense, defense, and special teams, they're outside of the top 10.
Rob, it's a great call. I appreciate it. That Dallas point is interesting because the special teams, they have the best kick returner right now in the NFL in Turpin. And I hope that Dan Quinn never kicks to that guy again. Learned that mistake the hard way. Don't need to see it done again. But the Commanders did have a great special teams unit when it came to covering that sort of stuff outside of the one time where they kicked to Turpin and Turpin broke our hearts. They had a really good, Ballore was really, really good. I think adding the guy from UCLA in the draft, Kane, I think he's going to be great on special teams. He's fast as hell. So just put him out there, put Ballore on one side, put Kane on the other side. You're going to get two guys that are steamrolling down the field on punts, on kicks, whatever. So I do think special teams-wise, Washington is pretty good. I'm excited to see what Jalen Lane is going to be if he ends up being the primary kicker punt returner. McCaffrey was good at the points where they started to use him. I don't need to see Austin Eckler again on kick returns. I think he's too valuable. I don't need to see him taking extra hits unless it is a must-have big return kind of scenario. Ben Standing is going to be with us on the other side. We'll get his thoughts on OTAs. Is it a big deal that certain players are missing from OTAs? He will give us the latest. It's Ben Standing from The Athletic next on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on a Friday. Ben Standing in just a moment of The Athletic. Get his thoughts on OTAs for the Commanders. Max, alert the presses.
Uh-oh.
For the first time in 6 months, Taylor Swift just tweeted.
Oh.
She has a new letter on her site. I only clicked this just because I was curious as to be what it was.
Sure.
The letter is handwritten.
Okay.
But the font is very small. I'm actually very upset about this. I was going to read the whole letter during the break, but I got my 4 eyes over here with the glasses. It's tough to read small print. Why couldn't she just type this thing out? Very upset about Taylor Swift. She got her master's back. It's not that important to me. It's important to you if you're a Swiftie. If you have kids and your daughter's a Swiftie, it's important to them. I was just very upset that it was a handwritten letter that was then taken a picture of. Scan it. I mean, it's 2025. Lord have mercy.
Scanners are very easy.
Like,
to
just make the
purchase, and they're
font bigger.
cheap.
Some of us can't read.
That's
all right. Ben Standing is with us here, the Athletics podcast, Last Man Standing. Ben, appreciate it, my friend. Walk us through the latest from OTAs over the past couple of days for those that haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, we were out there on Wednesday. We only get to be out there kind of like one day of the week that they have an OTA, and this is it's essentially a walkthrough ish. I mean, like this is I don't want to say it's like the first day of school, but in terms of like being out on the field with each other, yeah, that's kind of what it is. Unfortunately, it rained on Wednesday, so they practiced in the bubble, and they can do most of what they can do, but like it's it's a little more confined space, and practicing indoors at the turf in there is not as fun as on the grass. But look, I mean, you get to see Jaden Daniels, of course, back in action, and for the most part, he looked as expected, and we had a chance to talk to him after practice, and despite an off season where even for a guy that had just won the Heisman, the attention that he got, went up, umpteen levels, but he still seemed like the same guy we saw last year. Same, pretty chill, no high, no low, and that was equated, or that was confirmed by talking to Dan Quinn and some of the players as well. And then you get Trey Amos was out there. I thought he had a pretty good practice for the team. No Terry McLaurin, no Laramie Tunsil, no Marshawn Lattimore. It is voluntary, but I think some of those are some of the things that kind of stood out on the first day.
How did the rookies look amongst the veterans?
I mean, again, it's much more like an individual drill situation than it is like there was some 7-on-7, so it's hard to see like how adept they are at, say, the playbook and things along those lines. But I mean, and unfortunately, because of the way that it was set up, they had us penned in like all the way at one end of the practice facility, one end of the bubble, and the offensive linemen were at the complete opposite end. So I honestly couldn't see much of anything of what Josh Connerly or anybody was doing. But you could see Jalen Lane was out there returning punts. He seemed to be, again, this doesn't mean that much quite yet, but he seemed to be literally the first in line, for it. And that's, at least some indication that, hey, we, want to get this person as many reps as possible out there. And of course, guy who works, your colleague over there, Brian Mitchell, you may have heard of him as a noted punt returner. He was out there with the players. Dan Quinn asked him to, hey, could you hang out with us and on the field and, give some thoughts to the guys. And obviously that makes, incredible common sense. So he looked good. And again, I thought Trey Amos, again, it is 7-on-7. It's not the same thing as the real deal, but I thought he looked the part. I thought he had a pretty good day, and just to the point of like, did he look like he belonged? I mean, for what it's worth, I would say yes. I think for me in general, and we didn't talk to Trey Amos, but like when we're looking at the guys, we're getting to talk to the guys. Does it look like they belong? I think it's a fair question. I mean, I always go back to when Josh Dotson was a first-round pick, and I liked the pick, just based on watching him play. But if I remember, like the first time we all got to talk to him, I was like, "Oh boy, this guy does not seem. He seems a little scared of the moment or big eyes. Like I don't know, something feels off here." And then obviously, things kind of played out the way they did. So, as long as he passed that test, for me, things go generally well. We didn't talk to any of the rookies after practice, but from what I could tell, they generally seem to look the part.
Yeah, that Josh Doxson prediction turned a little too prophetic. As far as I'm concerned, I'm sure as far as you're concerned as well. Any indication on, not that I think that B. Mitch is going to be a coach all of a sudden. I mean, the man already has a ton of jobs, But was that a one-time thing, or is he going to be in that position maybe a little bit more frequently prior to actual training camp starting?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to see him out there again during one of these practices. Maybe. I mean, look, it's possible. But in terms of, I don't think he's going to be on the coaching staff. I mean, that, like you said, I mean, he's got a lot of other jobs, and that they have not only special teams coach, Larry Izzo. They hired the guy who used to be the Seahawks special teams coach to be Izzo's assistant, in Brian Schneider. So, obviously, I'm not saying those guys are necessarily equal to Brian Mitchell when it comes to returning, but it's not like they don't have options. But look, B. Mitch is around. He's out at the facility, most days when we're all out there during the week, because B. Mitch and JP will do their show from out there, and he does stuff for the team. So, anytime they want him to pop in, I imagine it's, hey, can you walk outside and go give some thoughts. But I don't think it's going to be any kind of permanent deal. But he may be out there for later in OTAs, or maybe even not training camp or something like that.
Ben Standing with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show, covers the team for The Athletic. His podcast, Last Man Standing, available wherever it is that you get your podcast. He joins us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Dende sitting in. I've seen some of the videos from OTAs. Obviously, there are only certain windows where you guys can get the cameras out and record. Was there anything of real substance that was taking place on the first day?
I hate to burst like bubbles out there, but not really. I mean, I thought like the passing game, like I didn't track every passer. There were some drills where they have all four quarterbacks throwing balls simultaneously to runners running different types of routes. It felt like things were a little bit off there, not completely in sync. But again, this is part of the deal. And Jane Daniels talked about this. Like, this is the first opportunity to really get to see in person what these guys do, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what they like, what he sees. So it is a get to know you situation. And obviously, a receiver in particular, you got Deebo Samuel, you got Jalen Lane, you got Michael Gallup. They've got new guys coming in, along with some of the holdovers. So it is just sort of that learning each other type deal. But beyond that, not really. I mean, obviously the guys who weren't there is of note, but it's voluntary. So, I'm not gonna, even with Terry McLaurin's, contract discussion, I'm not going to panic or even, worry about any of that until we get much deeper into this offseason. So, not really. I mean, like I said, I just think that, I guess there was a lot of talk about Jaden Daniels and whether he had put on some weight, and that's a relative term. Like, you wouldn't look at him and go, wow, this guy bulked up. But for him, based on the, his frame from last year, you can see a little bit, I think, of a little bit more, bulk, I guess, if you want to call it that. I don't know. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury, he hasn't been weighed yet, I guess, officially. That probably won't come until training camp. But, Kingsbury said if you got him on the scale now, he's probably a little bit heavier. And the player said that, hey, he's in the weight room all the time. But, the fact that was like a big topic was it kind of says it all in terms of what was really happening out there. There wasn't a ton, but, like I said, it's about getting to know each other, getting to know the staff, getting into a rhythm. And kind of understanding just, what it is that they're, trying to accomplish. And, day one officially on the field for that.
I hope you enjoyed the Jaden Daniel bulking conversation, Ben, because it's not going to go anywhere. I think we're going to get to a point, we're already kind of there, where people are just going to be examining pictures of him too much. It's like already starting to creep me out a little bit. I think it's only going to get worse as we get deeper and deeper into the offseason.
I have a feeling the conversation might be dead already. Like, we asked a bunch of questions. I guess whenever they do put out the official, like we received a roster as we do at practices to, hey, here's all the numbers for the guys. And his weight was the same as it was last year. So pretty sure it was just, copy paste situation. So whenever we get to training camp and they have, more official numbers, we'll see. Is he listed at 215? Is he listed at 210? Which is his current weight? That may, spark something. But, I think ultimately at the end of the day, nobody is looking for Jaden Daniels to become Cam Newton. It's just a matter of, hey, like with anything, can you get a little bit stronger? And in his case, the worst part of the season last year for the team was after he got the rib injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they ended up winning that game without him. The next week was the Hail Mary. So they almost lost it, you know, if we look at it from that perspective. And then they did lose, you know, 3 in a row after that. So, and it felt like things were a little bit off for him. Not that it was bad, but just, you know, it felt a little different. And then after that stretch, you know, he kicked it up again, and they closed out the season very strong and won 2 games in the playoffs. So I just think from that perspective, he's going to take hits, whether it's pass rushers. You know, he's obviously going to run into traffic, you know, out there. And, you know, he was good for the most part in terms of getting down, but, you know, he's a competitive guy. So anything he can do to give himself a little extra cushion, a little more strength would go a long way. But yes, I don't think we're really going to get too much out of this beyond, like I said, unless the weight that they officially list him at is something you're like, whoa, what's going on here?
Ben Standing with us here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin on a Friday. You mentioned Michael Gallup being there. He is a guy that I find interesting, Ben, just because I don't really know what his role is going to be. I think that Terry and Debo and Noah Brown are going to be your top 3 receivers. I don't know who wide receiver 4 is going to be. Do you think that could be a role for Michael Gallup? If not, what are realistic expectations for him?
Well, yeah, I'm intrigued by this one as well. I always liked him when he was at Dallas. Unfortunately, I mean, in terms of the player, I wasn't, you know, I wasn't rooting for the Cowboys. But like he, but you know, injuries unfortunately, you know, got the best of him and kind of slowed him down. He didn't play last year, but he came back this year and you know, obviously ready to go. And he, you know, Dan Quinn knows him from their time together in Dallas. I think you actually just made the interesting point, and that is, if he becomes the 4th receiver, then I think, okay, then obviously he's on the team.
Right.
But if it's not, if Jalen Lane is able to, I think Jalen Lane's best work this year may come as a punt returner, which is fine for the first year. But like if he's able to become part of the rotation, right, then, and say if Luke McCaffrey, you know, there were points last year where it felt like Luke McCaffrey was on the verge of something and then it just never quite happened. If those guys are more likely to be in the rotation than Gallup, I think the Gallup's roster spot becomes in peril because he doesn't play special teams, and neither does, you know, Terry McLaurin. Noah Brown doesn't. Debo did some last year, but like, you know, I don't know how much. We'll see how much Washington wants to use him out there in any kind of capacity for that. And, you know, it'd be kind of hard to have 4 of your 6 receivers not play special teams in terms of just the overall roster. And then, like, you know, you look at, are they keeping a 4th running back with Corey, Krosky, Merritt possibly joining the 3 guys that were there last year? Are you keeping that 4th tight end? I mean, Colson Yankoff was a pretty good special teams player last year. Or are you keeping the 3rd quarterback like they did a year ago? You know, and then they not even getting into like the defense and all those kind of conversations there. So I think to me that's the case. If they think that Gallup is their legit 4th, then yeah, then he gives them another guy with some, you know, decent size, physical receiver, and you know, hopefully he's healthy enough to make some plays. He had a pass ricochet off his hands from Jaden in practice that got picked off, and then on another play going up against Trey Amos, they kind of bumped. He fell to the ground, and the ball landed with Amos. But you know, that aside, I think that's the key. If he's the 6th receiver, I don't know that he's on the team as a 6th receiver. He's got to, I think, crack that top 4 because, like I said, otherwise, you know, you can't really have your 6th receiver not play special teams. I would say. So yeah, I think that's the thing to keep an eye on as much as anything.
Did we ever get a reason, whether it be whispers or murmurs, as to why Luke McCaffrey never really caught on? Because you're right, it felt like, especially in the early point in the season, that there was something there. He was open a lot, just wasn't thrown to, and then eventually you thought he'd be thrown to, and then it kind of thought, like, in my mind of the schedule, right? Like, all right, he's not getting thrown to, but he will get thrown to it, like, the back half of the year. Well, the back half of the year, he stopped playing as frequently. Do we ever get a reason for that?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things, right? I mean, you know, Olamide Zaccheaus, you know, played pretty well last year, and he was coming out of the slot, which is where they kind of had McCaffrey kind of looked at for a bit. De'Ami Brown, certainly his best stretch was the very end of the year, but, you know, he did provide some of that deep speed down the field as well, and they wanted that on the field. And then, you know, Noah Brown, until he got hurt, you know, was having a pretty productive year. So at some point, you just kind of lose opportunities. And, you know, look, I think the thing with McCaffrey and why, for me, I'm not remotely panicking about anything. It's like, look, it was only his third year at the position. He had switched, of course, in college from quarterback to receiver for the last 2 years. So, there is a little bit of a learning curve for sure. And, I think the fact that he showed some good work as a kick returner, to me, says something, because it shows, with the ball in his hands, that there's something to like. I know that's not the same thing as catching passes, but as an athletic presence, like, you could see why he's an interesting player. And, look, I think the thing with this year is, if Debo's healthy and, is gives them what they want, then he's obviously going to play a ton. If Noah Brown can stay healthy, a big hit for him, then he's going to be that size guy opposite McLaurin for the most part. And then so like, there just may not be a ton of reps anyway, but I'm still optimistic that McCaffrey's a guy, and just, just got to hope, another year in the system, he feels a little bit more comfortable off his position. And again, his dad was a longtime NFL receiver. We obviously know his brother, is one of the better players in the NFL. So it's not like he doesn't know the league or doesn't know the game or anything along those lines. It's just a new position. So hopefully another year learning it, helps him possibly make a bigger jump this year.
Was there any pushback to no Laramie Tunsil or Marshawn Lattimore from the coaching staff?
No, I mean, Quinn, there's only really so much he can say, right? It is voluntary. It's funny, like, because even going back before this group with Jay Gruden and the Ron Rivera era, like, we've always had this notion here of, like, guys show up for OTAs, and they typically have. When somebody hasn't, it's been like, ooh, what's going on here? In a lot of other teams, that's the norm. Like, I think in Tampa, I was one of the reporters there who I follow on social media was like, hey, he was counting like in the 70s there, 90 is the number. I know the Ravens have historically, a lot of their vets don't show. So I don't think it's a big deal. It's just, and Dan Quinn didn't seem to suggest that it was. He, said he's talked to everybody, it's his job to sort of stay in touch with everybody and make sure everybody's on the same page and doing what they need to do and all that. I think what is interesting to me, though, is, for all this talk of the improved culture, which is, seemed pretty legitimate from what I could tell last year, and the results, I think, said that as well. But the new culture gets tested year over year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, last year everybody was buying in because everybody was like, this is a new deal, all that. Well, now you have, Laramie Tunsil was traded here, right? Marshawn Lattimore was traded here. I'm not saying they're going to be negative for the culture at all, but like, the reports out of Houston where Houston decided that they needed to break up the offensive line room because the chemistry just kind of wasn't working. And with Marshawn Lattimore, there was some notion of like maybe his act was getting a little tired in New Orleans along with the injuries. So, how do these guys, and not just them, but just anybody who's coming in new, how do the new people integrate with what you're already doing? It's what the ability to keep that going year over year over year is why I think teams like the Baltimore Ravens, I mean, Ray Lewis has been gone a long time, but it feels like it's still the same type of environment that was built during that era. The San Antonio Spurs in the NBA kind of, not as much now, but like in the whole part of the Tim Duncan era, it was the same thing. There was a standard there. You knew what it was, and you had to meet it. And, if Washington can keep that up, that's huge going forward. And I think they will, but, that's the interesting part when you have guys like Tunsil and Lattimore who may be kind of doing their own thing, in this case, not showing up at least for the first week of OTAs on the field. So we'll see what happens going forward, but not a big deal for now.
A couple more for Ben Stanek here on the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton sitting in for Kevin. Just to clarify, Ben, I just want to make sure I am aware and that the NFL hasn't changed policies, but guys can't work out at the facility after OTAs are done, right? Like if they stay in the area, are they allowed to go lift on the facility? Or do they need like a lifetime gym membership?
I think they could just stay around. I think that's, it's really just a matter of like, the coaches, like if there does become a point where like the coaches like can't like deal with them really.
Right.
So like they can go in the weight room and do whatever they do or go work out in the field with each other if they want, that type of deal. But like, yeah, there does become a point where you can't, like, the communication gets,
limited or
gets limited. Yeah, exactly. And, some guys obviously prefer to go home for whatever or wherever they want to train and do that. Other guys, it's just, hey, let me just stay here in town, just get my life, my schedule kind of going here. and do that. So yeah, I mean, I think some guys will stick around. It just depends on who they are and where they live, and guys with kids might be different than guys who are just coming into the league, things like that.
Do the Pacers close out the Knicks on Saturday, or do we get a Game 7?
I think yes. I mean, obviously the Knicks were in control of this last game from the start, but I mean, look, this is an interesting series because it hasn't really been like one-sided, even though it was a 3-1 lead. I mean, the Knicks blew that massive game and that massive lead in Game 1, and both of these teams have a tremendous amount of like resolve and fight in them. So I think the Knicks are not going to shy away, but I think the Pacers get it done. This wasn't the best Halliburton game, kind of a little more passive than probably needed to be. So, I imagine he comes out stronger before the home crowd and they find a way to get it done.
Yeah, something tells me he'll be a lot better in game number 6. He has been standing. Ben, appreciate the insight. And if we get a Game 7, we'll be talking about it on Monday. If not, enjoy Game 6.
Also, hey, look, at least with the Knicks winning, we have another game. If the Knicks had lost, we have no NBA for a while. So at least we got another game out of it.
Yeah, if not, you and I would be locked into like college softball this weekend, which I will watch, but I wanted basketball desperately.
I'd be binge watching some TV show on Netflix. That's what I'm doing.
Ben, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, man. See you.
That's Ben Standig. You can follow him on Twitter at Ben Standig. He is our Washington Commanders insider. Subscribe to his podcast if you are not already, at Last Man Standing. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, what are you doing? Subscribe to the Team 980's YouTube channel. Kevin is live every Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Craig Hoffman live on the channel 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And you get the little Denton's office in there on the video section as well. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can follow me on Twitter at the Denton Day. Coming up next, a couple of superlatives plus back into the list of Washington's roster ranking outside of the top 10 according to most. We dive back into it when we get back. It's Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day, sitting in for Kevin on the Team 980. banger song at a wedding.
All time.
For the new generation.
Oh, yeah. They go nuts.
At my wedding, everyone was on the floor belting this.
Should be.
And it was one of those things where I was like getting robbed away for pictures. Like, yay, we got to come take a picture with you. And I'm like, I will, but
let's play this song first.
Like, could you wait till a Bruno Mars song comes on or something like that?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I don't really need the Bruno Mars, but everybody loves the Killers. It's Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980, a Friday. What are you doing this weekend, Max? Anything?
What am I doing this weekend? I'm going to see Mission Impossible for the second time tonight. I'm going out to...
This is the second time you've seen this new Mission Impossible?
Yes. So my buddy was in Europe over this past weekend, and we hang out way too much. So I was like, you know what am I going to do this weekend? Okay, Mission Impossible open. So I ate way too many edibles, and I went to go see it. Very good movie. Enjoyed it quite a bit. I'm a big Mission Impossible guy. But I do have to take him to see it tonight, and we're going to see it at Udvar Hazy. So we're going to be seeing it on the big screen, the big screen.
Oh, so you're like going into a... That's crazy. They do...
Yeah.
Like you're talking like the Air and Space Museum.
Yeah.
They do all movies there? Is that just like a Mission Impossible thing? Or like select films?
Select films. The ones that are in IMAX, because we saw Sinners over there too. Very good movie.
That's pretty crazy. I've had a lot of people tell me I need to see Sinners. I can't pay for movie tickets anymore.
I understand.
It's too much, you know, because if I'm going to a movie, I'm taking my wife to a movie too.
You're getting popcorn, you're getting a big soda.
We're getting...
You might be hungry.
We'll see it. Some of them, I got outclassed by a teenager, and I felt washed.
Oh, no.
My wife and I went to see, this was months ago now at this point, we went to see Captain America.
Okay.
And we went to a theater in the Tysons area that we really like. I'm not going to name it because I don't want to get run up on at a theater. Not that anyone's going to run up on me, but whatever. So we go, it's a theater that serves food. So we go and we get some food. First of all, they didn't have what we actually wanted. And I was like, why would you not put it was an electronic menu. I was like, why'd you not say that this is sold out? Like that feels like a button you push and say, hey, don't have this one.
Very
whatever.
quick update.
So they didn't have what we wanted. We still were able to we got like chicken tenders and fries, but chicken tenders and fries was like $16.
Yeah.
So it overall cost over $100 to see the movie with 2 tickets, 2 meals, and then popcorn. And we get in, so we order it at the kiosk, walk in, and then there's like a row of high schoolers with Chipotle. And I was like, why did I not channel my inner DGen side? Because I used to do that all the time when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to stop you. Because the people working the desk don't care about their job enough to stop you. They're like, I'm not going to, most of them are high schoolers anyway. They're like, they're not going to stop a 30-year-old. No. They don't get paid enough. They get like minimum wage. They're not stopping me from
$15
Chipotle.
an hour, if that.
They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. So enjoy Mission Impossible. I think I'm going to be in Annapolis just hanging out for a little bit tomorrow. The weather's finally nice. I got to get out there on this paddleboard, man.
You do.
Like I need to get out there. I'm not bringing mine to Annapolis. I don't know that I'm allowed to, but I just in general need to get out on the paddleboard. I bought this paddleboard for my 30th birthday. And then Mother Nature was like, sick. We're going to make it rain for the rest of like the next 2 weeks. And when it doesn't rain, it's going to be like 50 degrees. And you're not going to want to stand out on the water at 50 degrees. But then on top of that, if you know how the Potomac works and it rains, all that sewage comes right up to the top. And you're just like, ugh.
This is disgusting.
Like, I don't plan on getting into the water much while I paddleboard because I don't plan on falling. But if that does come into fruition, I do not want to fall into the sewage-ridden Potomac. No, thank you.
Yeah, it's vile. It's disgusting. One fun fact I learned about the Potomac. You're only allowed to eat 1 fish out of the Potomac per year.
That's a fact. I don't know. That's a fun fact. Well, first of all, you are a psycho if you're going fishing like that in the Potomac.
Listen, man, people down at the tidal basin, they'll do it. I don't know if they won't eat the
crazy
fish,
behavior,
but they will fish the fish,
especially at the tidal basin. The tidal basin is beautiful. Aesthetically, it's one of the nicest areas in town. It's the most tourist-filled spot. You don't know what's going in there. Like, I'm worried about sewage in most places. I'm worried about way more at the tidal basin.
Yeah. It's not good.
Not great at all. What is great is the Kevin Sheehan Show. And this is the Kevin Sheehan Show. Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here. You get the Rooster at 1 p.m. here on the Team 980. I do want to get back into, so we talked about this Pro Football Focus list of the top rosters in the NFL. They have Washington ranked at number 11. There were some blurbs to go along with that ranking that I did find to be interesting. So they ranked the Commanders at number 11. The biggest strength for Washington on their roster, unsurprisingly, is Jaden Daniels. If you ask 17 different people, they're going to give you the exact same answer. You can grow that number to as much as you want. If you ask everybody that covers the NFL, they're going to say Jane Daniels is the biggest strength of this roster, unless somebody wants to be the alternative source, and they're going to say coaching or something silly like that. But it's going to be Jane Daniels is the biggest strength. The biggest weakness is defensive line. I've been saying that all offseason. Most of you have been saying that all offseason. They just don't have a game record. At a point, it looked like Deron Payne was a game wrecker. That was in a contract year. He got paid. You just need to find a way to make Deron Payne think that every year is a contract year. Give him the stability to keep him and then make him think that every year is a contract year. If you make him think every year is a contract year, you're getting 11 and a half sacks from a defensive tackle. You're getting a legitimate game wrecker and a guy that takes over drives. He hasn't taken over a drive, I don't think, in 2 years. The last time I remember him taking over a drive, Russell Wilson was a Denver Bronco, and very newly a Denver Bronco. He just doesn't do that now that he's gotten paid and that the way that this defensive line is lined up. Because at the very, I know Chase didn't work here, Montez didn't work here, John did, but that group of four was a very good group in that you're not doubling and tripling the defensive tackles there, because you still have to, at the very least, respect Chase Young and at the very least respect Montez Sweat. My biggest issue going into this season is that there is no one that you are going to pay that sort of respect to on the outside. If Dietrich Wise is going to be on the outside opposite of Dorrance Armstrong, what do we really know about Dietrich Wise? Not a lot. He's not a game wrecker. He's not a guy that you are panicking about if you're an offensive coordinator figuring out how are we going to stop him. You're not feeling that same way about Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell, whoever it is, Javonte Jean-Baptiste. I hope that he takes a big step forward, but he's not a game wrecker. That's what Washington's defensive line is missing. They don't have a game wrecker. They have a guy that they are paying to be a game wrecker, but that guy has not been a game wrecker in at least 2 seasons. So that's obviously a big-time problem. The X factor that they had on this was Marshawn Lattimore. I understand where they're going with this. If Lattimore is really, really good, you then have Lattimore on one side. If he is the Lattimore that they wanted when they traded for him, he was injured last year, had some hamstring issues. The problem with a hamstring issue is that once you have a hamstring issue, you always have a hamstring issue. If for most other injuries, if you break a finger, you get the finger healed, you're good. Play with a splint, what have you. It's not going to be that big of a difference maker in the play. Well, a hamstring it is. You don't trust yourself to plant. You don't trust your speed. You lose some of the speed. Your athleticism takes a big-time hit. There's all sorts of factors that go into the hamstring injury, and unfortunately, that's what's riddled Marshawn Lattimore. So I understand where they're coming from, being that if Lattimore is the Lattimore that the front office wanted when they traded for him, you have a lockdown corner, or at the very least, a true number one corner on one side, and then you have a decision to make, hoping that Trey Amos is as good as the front office thought when they drafted him, saying that he was one of their first-round graded guys, and they got him in the 60s. So you hope that he excels on the outside, and then you get Mikey in the interior in the slot. That's a pretty good trio to have, assuming that Marshawn Lattimore plays the way that Marshawn Lattimore is expected to play. I would feel very, very good about that, and maybe that would make life a lot easier for the defensive line because they'd be able to hold coverage, and you'd come away with more coverage sacks and things of that nature. So I get what they're going there with the X factor. I would actually say that the X factor is going to be Deron Payne. It's either Deron Payne or it's Frankie Louvu. It's one of those guys, whoever can get pressure. The two most important positions on the field are the quarterback and the guy that gets after the quarterback. That has been the tale as long as we can remember. Can you get after the quarterback, and do you have a good one? Washington has a great one. They still need someone that can get after him. If Deron Payne wants to be that guy, maybe he's heard some of the clippings of the media. If he wants to put some of those in his locker, we can do that. I will come. I don't know how you can hang an MP3 in the locker, but we will do that. If that is what he needs to motivate him to be good again, make Deron Payne great again, if that's what he needs, do it, because they need a game wrecker. So my X factor would not be Marshawn Lattimore. It would instead be Deron Payne or Frankie Louvu, because if it's not Deron Payne that becomes the game wrecker, I think the positioning and the use of Frankie Louvu is going to get adjusted so that he then becomes a guy very similar to how Dallas used Micah Parsons. Louvu was not Micah Parsons physically or athletically, but very similar to how they used him. I think we would see a lot more of that from Frankie Louvu in year number 2 in Washington if Daron Payne or whoever, Javon Kinlaw, whoever, if they are not actual game wreckers. The rookie to watch on this list is Josh Connolly Jr. I would have said Trey Amos just because I think defense is such an important key here. But I understand what they're getting at. If Josh Connolly is going to be your starting right tackle, which Pro Football Focus did not have that. By the way, they did list the starting lineups, which I will read to you here in just a second. They did not have Connolly starting at right tackle. They had Andrew Wiley, but the expectation is that at some point Connolly is going to take over for one Andrew Wiley. That solidifies the offensive line, and I think you're feeling pretty good about it. Their starting lineups don't make a ton of sense, is how I would describe it. This is the kind of starting lineup. So they'd have a projected 2025 starting lineup here. And if you are an anti-Pro Football Focus guy, this is a W for you. I like PFF. I use it the way I think PFF was designed to be used, which is when it works with your argument, you use it. When it doesn't, you dunk on it. That's how I think this thing was designed. I use it that way. Their projected starting lineups kind of validate that point. They have Sam Cosmi at right guard. We have been told nothing that would suggest that Sam Cosmi is going to be able to start 2025. So maybe if they're taking the starting lineups from like week 10, we have no idea when Sam Cosmi is going to be around. Just based off of the nature of the injury and when it happened, it feels incredibly unlikely that he is going to be good to go to start the season. So they still have him at right guard. They have Andrew Wiley at right tackle. So in this list of potential starters, they do not have Josh Connolly on offense. They do not have Brandon Coleman on offense. Now, they list 12 guys because they list 2 running backs, Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler, but they do not have Brandon Coleman or Josh Connolly listed. My guess is that at least one, if not both of them, are starting in some capacity in week 1. On defense, they had Kinlaw Payne and Johnny Newton as the defensive interiors with Dorrance Armstrong and Dietrich Wise as the 2 edge guys. They had Noah I as the starting second corner. They have three corners. They got Lattimore, Noah I, Mikey Sander still. It doesn't specify who would be in the slot, who would be on the outside, but they have Noah I in there over Trey Amos. I think Noah I is going to be a really good guy to have at that 4th corner slot if you're in the dime package or if you're putting more than that in terms of defensive backs out there. I think he'd be a really good guy to have out there. I would still like to see much more Trey Amos than I would Noah I. That's with full understanding that Noah I was really good last year, but I just want to see more of Trey Amos than I do Noah I, because that would validate the idea that Trey Amos is who they thought he was going to be and then is playing to the level that they were hoping he would when they ended up drafting him. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day sitting in for Kevin here on the Team 980. You get Chris Russell coming up at 1 o'clock. Coming up next, we wrap the show with a very controversial list that has nothing to do with football, Max, but it is controversial nonetheless. Don't go anywhere. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show.
All right. Multiple NFL teams are showing significant interest in Falcons tight end Kyle Pitts. Nothing is imminent, but according to reports, the Falcons are seeking at least a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. The Minnesota Vikings have re-signed GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to a multi-year extension. Under his tenure, the Vikings are 34-17, including a 14-3 season in 2024. The Nats, they rally big in the 10th inning. They score 9 runs, the most in franchise history, to beat the Seattle Mariners by a score of 9-3. And Mackenzie Gore continues to show off his ace potential, becoming the first pitcher in the MLB to reach 100 strikeouts. He had 6 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts, and only gave up 4 hits. A quiet night around the world of sports, but the Nats will continue their West Coast road trip. They take on the Diamondbacks tonight. Jake Irvin expected to start. Nats on deck with Charlie and Dave at 9:10. First pitch at 9:40. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, and hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live from 10 to 1, and Craig Hoffman from 4 to 7. Don't forget to like the stream and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that's what's trending.
Damn. It's the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day. Sitting in for Kevin at the Denton Day on Twitter. Kevin is out until Wednesday, so I'm going to be back with you on Monday as well. Eric Edholm, who wrote the list that we talked about of top 10 rosters in the NFL, is going to be with us at 11 a.m. on Monday, so you don't want to miss that conversation. Max, I just learned literally 45 seconds ago. I knew I was going to do this topic, but I did not know why this topic was presented to me in the way that it was. May 28th, which is my birthday, Wednesday, is National Burger Day. I was not aware of that.
I was not either.
You know, I think there's a lot of like national, such and such days that I think are really silly, like National Blue Shirt Day, National, 3-button day. Like some of that stuff I think is silly, but I feel like National Burger Day was something that should be way more hyped in our country, seeing as we kind of invented the hamburger.
Yeah.
It's like an American staple. So I feel like there should have been a lot of restaurants that were giving away or giving you specials and deals on burgers.
We don't give things away these days, Denton. Haven't you learned nothing?
That is true. There's not a lot of free things in this country. But I came across this list. Yelp ranked all of the burger joints, the top 25 burger joints in the country. This is kind of polarizing.
Chris Russell and I are going to spend an hour on this, but let's get into it.
Well, if Chris Russell didn't go on the other channel right before his show, he would be in here to have this conversation. But I think you guys will have a great conversation about it.
I know we will.
What I want to make clear first is that based off of this list, I do not believe that Burger King should keep its name. I think it needs to transition to something else. Because Burger King is not at the top of the list, Max. It is not at the top of the list. In fact, it is not really on the list. Oh, no, it is. It's at 19. It's at 19. 19 is very far for a King, though, in a list of 25. It's very far down there. So In-N-Out was ranked as the best burger.
Overrated.
In-N-Out is overrated AF.
Thank you.
In-N-Out is effectively the Lamar Jackson of quarterbacks in the playoffs. It looks really good from the outside, and then you get to the playoffs when it's time to be tested, and you're like, I could see why you like this.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not for me. In-N-Out is crazy overrated. Had it once or twice. Maybe I didn't go to the right spots in Las Vegas. Maybe the Vegas In-N-Outs are leaving a lot to be desired. It just was not that good. It was not that good. It was good, but it wasn't for all the hype that it was. They're like, well, did you get the sauce on the fries? I was like, am I here to eat the fries or the burger?
Correct.
Like, what are we looking to accomplish here? Whataburger, which I had in Austin for my bachelor party in February, was far better. The size of the burger was better. The quality of the burger was better. Whataburger to me clears In-N-Out, but In-N-Out is ranked number 1. Number 2 is Habit Burger and Grill.
Never been.
There are a lot of those actually around here. So
really?
That could be something you could try. There's a couple around here. I think there's one in Loudon. There might be one in Reston Town Center as well. So if you live around there,
I'll be out in that area tonight. So I'm going to look into this because
I think there's a good amount of Habit Burger and Grills around here.
Because I've never heard of it before, and I pride myself as a fat guy. So yeah, this is going to be tried this weekend probably.
Yeah, there's one in Chantilly. There's one at Ashburn.
Okay.
So if you're in Chantilly at the Udvar Hazy, it's probably really close.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, it's right by like that Wegmans.
Find out what time they close.
Over there. They'll be open. Don't you worry. Number 3 was Shake Shack.
Solid. Good
choice there. A lot of Shake Shacks in DC. Culver's number 4. I don't live in the Midwest. I'm not a Culver's guy, to be honest.
Oh, very Butterburgers. Oh my God.
Five Guys was 7 on this list. Way back was 8. Those are both around here. I mean, Five Guys is huge.
The one in front of Five Guys, Freddy's. There's one in Fairfax. So good.
So good. I'll have to try it.
It's a lot like Steak and Shake. The fries are like it's basically Steak and Shake of the North and like the Midwest. I think it started in like North Texas or Oklahoma or something like that. But Freddy's, very good.
Red Robin at number 10. I thought Red Robin was a sit down. Like,
Right.
I feel like we
it's
can't judge sit-down places versus fast food places. Like Five Guys is really like straddling the line there, but at least In-N-Out was fast food. Whataburger, which is like at 14 on this list, which is beyond me, but that's fast food. Like all these things are fast food except for Red Robin. If you can get an appetizer at a place, I feel like that shouldn't count.
Steak and Shake's at 25 on this list? My God.
Steak and Shake is hit or miss across the country.
I guess.
I mean, there was one where I was at in college. I just think like the In-N-Out hype needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
And I'm really upset that there's not like
ourselves.
a real footprint of Washington, D.C. on here. I feel like there should be like In-N-Out is looked at as like this West Coast thing.
Well, hold on, whoa. Where did Five Guys start, Den?
Did Five Guys start in D.C.?
Yeah. Five Guys local.
We'll take all right, we'll take Five Guys then. It's become such a chain. Maybe it's only a chain because I'm only from here.
Yeah.
And it's not like I didn't see a Five Guys in Indianapolis.
Five Guys is everywhere, but it grew quickly once the growth started.
All right, I'll take Five Guys then.
Shut up, Five Guys.
Five Guys, better than In-N-Out. Confirmed.
Correct.
I just think it's overrated. It's an overrated burger. It's Lamar in the playoffs.
It feels 3D printed whenever I get one from In-N-Out. You know what I mean?
There's no love.
Yeah.
You know, they think too highly of themselves. All right, so that's going to do it for us. I think you guys are going to spend a lot on this topic with Chris Russell.
Absolutely.
I think Chris Russell has some hot takes there. Sonic is on this list. I've never had a burger from Sonic. Cookout. I can't do Sonic.
It's good.
I can't do Sonic
Sonic's
anymore.
so good.
We used to do it. There's not one close. We would drive when we were in high school, like 40 minutes to Winchester for Sonic and back.
Yeah.
And like at the time that was fun, but like now I just feel like I'm not stopping at a Sonic. I think that model kind of stinks too, where you got to push buttons. And the last time I was at one, it royally screwed up. So I got beef with Sonic.
Okay.
No hamburger. All right, that's going to do it for us. This has been the Kevin Sheehan Show with Denton Day. We're back on Monday. Eric Edholm going to join us. Ben Standing going to join us. Hopefully, we get some good NBA games on Saturday. Maybe we even have a Game 7 that we get to discuss on Monday. We shall see. I got the Pacers laying 3.5. That's an official play. If it hits, your boy's going to be wearing new jewelry on Monday. Not actually, but I do think the Pacers lay the 3.5. So play that one. Enjoy the weekend. I'll see you Monday. Chris Russell's up next on the Team 980.
Thank God it's Friday.
Hello.